right. Where are we? Where am I? There we are.
Somewhere.
Somewhen.
Excellent, dude.
Excellent. Most triumphant. Most triumphant. Who was wait, so you can stream like live on Plex? Is that what you did yesterday or
Yeah, there's a watch together option now on Plex, so you can. The thing is, though, it only works with certain platforms. We would definitely be able to do it with Roku. And yesterday it was a bit of a workaround because the other people, it was Mike and our buddy Ben, who they had laptops. So it turns out there's another streaming platform, third-party thing where you can sync up your server and watch through like a separate server. It was like a weird workaround, but we were able to get it. And the sync up was pretty good. Like we had our iPad or iPhones out, like we could like see each other and watch the movie at the same time.
oh, nice.
Yeah, that was the third time I watched it.
Say, was it everybody's first time? Wow, you're third already. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, because I watched it once with Mike. I watched it once with Mike, and then watched it again the next day, and then again yesterday.
How are you feeling about it after 3?
Oh, dude, I love it, man. I just thoroughly enjoyed that movie. It was so triumphantly good. It's like just what we needed, man. Like we were anticipating. Of course, the movie could have been bad. Like it had very possibly could have been bad. Just, kind of like revamping an older series. But dude, they did such a good job. It was hilarious.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. So, did you realize right away that you knew that guy?
No, I didn't. It wasn't until the end credits.
Hey, Isabel, stop. Isabel, hey. Stop. Isabel. Come on.
Sorry. No, I didn't realize it was him. And it's funny, dude, when he first showed up, he's kind of scary looking. That robot was a little scary looking.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah, just like once they got to the prison and they started like beating him up, and she's like, "Pull yourself together, you're a robot." And he's like, "Most not triumphant."
Yeah, I definitely didn't expect him to be a source of so much humor.
Oh, dude!
Right when he came in, I thought, yeah, that was a funny little twist of just an added bonus of a different. Like, I appreciated that they added a newer character that was actually funny, and it wasn't just all in the same, Bill and Ted vein. I like that they did a little bit of something different there. Whereas, their daughters obviously were kind of essentially just doing impersonations of them, which I liked, but if it was, I liked that they added something different in there. That was fun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, man, that girl that played the daughter of Ted.
Yeah.
Totally got his mannerisms down so perfectly, man. Just the whole like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. So fucking funny, dude.
Yeah, I liked everything about it. It was, it wasn't trying to do too much. It's almost like exactly an hour and a half, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, not trying to complicate things. I appreciated that they weren't trying to, I don't know. They just, they did everything the right way, I think, which is very satisfying. And then, just the perfect kind of culmination at the end. At the end there was just, it was funny. Me and Steve were laughing like, oh, of course, like, yeah, a lot of things had to work out in the end conveniently, like trucks having equipment and like a stage, all that stuff. But I was like, I'm fine with all this. It doesn't matter.
Who cares? Yeah, like there was that part when they're on the like finally get to that area at MP46. He's like, this is MP46. He's like, but like, how are we supposed to play the song here? And it's like, maybe this is where we're supposed to play it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh God, it was so funny, man. Like they really leaned into it in some hilarious ways. There was that like the father, Ted's father, who was in hell, who finally came to believe him. It's like, well, now that I'm in hell, it means that you were right about all that stuff, the time travel and everything. It took him to go to hell to finally realize it. And dude, they like when they get to hell and they find Death, and he's just like, is he playing hopscotch by himself? Dude, he's cheating.
Yeah.
That's 75 out of 81.
Yeah, I like that little backstory too. That they were in the band and they kicked Death out of the band because he was like doing 45-minute bass solos.
Yeah.
Had a restraining order against him.
Yeah, it's like, is this too close for you? Are you here to sue me again? Oh my god, dude. And like Ted becomes an alcoholic, and there's that part when there's the first time they see them at that bar, I guess, in Barstow that they had set up earlier, and they're singing that song that we are those who rock, yeah. And then they just like run away and chase him down, and they're like, oh, totally forgot you were gonna be here. Yeah, how's it going? It's like, what do you mean you were running away from us? And dude, like Ted becomes an alcoholic, and that next scene when they show up and they got the English accents and they're like, hey, puppy coco. And
Dave Grohl's house.
yeah, and Ted is just like drinking a bottle of vodka, and Bill is like, you gotta lay off the vodka, Ted. Take it easy, man. Oh dude, there were so many great little moments in that story.
Yeah, I got to rewatch.
Yeah. God, what else was like the hilarious? That song that they played in the very beginning when they were at the wedding. That was actually kind of cool. It was hilarious, but it was kind of cool with the bagpipes and the trumpets, and they're doing like the recording of each thing, and oh my god.
Yeah, and that just made so much sense because they've been trying so hard, and it just made sense to me that that's what they had arrived. Like they're trying so hard that they're doing 20 different cultures music, and then modern and also older music, just like pulling out all the stops because still trying to find that song, and I just couldn't do it because it wasn't them. I like that.
Dude, and the band that they wrangled together, oh my god, that actually brought tears to my eyes towards the end, man. Just having all of those guys together. And I recently had just watched Amadeus for the first time. Have you seen that?
Oh, I've watched like the first 20 minutes, but I haven't gotten all the way through.
Yeah, I watched that at Uncle Bruce's this last time I was up there before we left, and I've been listening to a lot of Mozart, and just Mozart's so fucking cool, man. Like, especially in that movie, you see him the way he's portrayed. He's like a rock star, not like your classical dude. He was kind of like your first rock star, got wasted and womanizer and was childish and all that. And his music is so good. And then the fact that Jimi Hendrix was playing with that scene when Jimi Hendrix was playing with Mozart, and Mozart was just like, and then like, oh my God, it was such a cool ensemble. And then that song at the end was really, really cool, man. It was actually, it was good.
Hey, stop. Isabel. Stop.
Anyway.
Yeah, really, it came together nicely. And like I was texting you, I really like that the daughters were kind of, the conductors, and they were like, no, slow it down, you hear? And like, I was like, are they going to play, like, because we never see them play instruments. So I was like, are they just going to all of a sudden be able to shred? But I really like that they were just kind of organizing everybody and then keeping the tempo. And then, that was just a cool aspect to me that, like, we just really like a lot of really good music, and we know what to listen to. They're just like good at listening to music. So
and then Ted is like, and it's like you really just know what to listen to and how to put things together. Just repeat it exactly the same. They're just like, whoa, that's like so cool, man. It was hilarious, and God, like to the fucking robot, like Dennis Caleb McCoy, and they get to hell, and the robot lands there, and they're like, oh, that's unusual. Wasn't expecting that. It's a robot in hell. My name is Dennis. Okay, come on, Dennis. It's actually Dennis McCoy. All right, come on, Dennis McCoy. Well, my full name is Dennis Caleb. All right, dude, come on. And they like see those demons on the way to find it, and the demons are like, oh, whoa, that's a robot in hell. Okay.
I think those were the writers.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
They
okay.
were they were in the original movie with Napoleon when Napoleon was eating ice cream. Ziggy Piggy, Ziggy
Oh,
Piggy. Those are
oh,
those
those are the writers? No way. Oh, Ziggy Piggy.
guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's hilarious. Oh my god.
Yeah, I was watching because on the Bill and Ted set that I have, it came with 3 DVDs, and the third one was kind of like a behind the scenes making of, and most of it is just a conversation between the creators.
Hmm.
Because they used to have so I just watched that, so then I was watching the third movie and I was like, oh yeah, those are the guys. But they used to do like it was like a show or like a play almost where they were Bill and Ted before Bill and Ted, so that's kind of how they. So one of they talk like them and they can do the mannerisms. So it was just them riffing, like, what about these characters, and then they turned it into a movie. But and it was,
Yeah.
I feel like this one was almost the most lighthearted of all three.
Yeah.
Like almost more kid friendly than I think, or at least modern day kid friendly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Because Hell wasn't that scary. Like, just watching recently watching both of the originals, Hell's kind of scary. It's pretty intimidating, and they got really crazy lighting and intense angles. And there's a giant like devil, like a 400-foot tall devil. Like it's a scary thing. Whereas this one, they're just like, oh, we're in hell. It's like a pit, and there's a couple of little demons running around, but it didn't seem that that
yeah.
intense for
Yeah.
Hell.
Yeah.
The whole movie just kind of seemed very, very lighthearted. But like as we were saying, that's what we need right now is just some lighthearted, feel good shit. And then for all to come together at the end. And then when they started going around getting everybody instruments
Yeah.
and everyone in the crowd, I was like, this is such the like antithesis to Mandala. Like the last Mandala show, that was the exact opposite of the ending of Mandala, but like the same, like the positive Mandala.
Did you
An
see the
uplifting performance and what?
did you see the end credit scene?
No, I don't think I did.
Yeah, so there's an end credit scene where it's the old Bill and Ted that were in the nursing home.
Hmm.
And they're just sitting there like, Ted, are you dead yet? Ted's like, no. Are you? He's like, no. All right, there's one last thing to do. And they get up and they just like shred on guitar for like 30, like for like a minute. It's hilarious. The Alex Winter does such a good job at playing an old person, the way his eyes are moving, because there was in Bogus Journey as well that when they were in hell, Alex Winter played his grandma, when he was a little
Oh,
kid, and
oh
he's
yeah. Oh, he
give
put that
me a
was
kiss.
him?
Yeah, that's Alex Winter.
Oh, that was scary.
Yeah, that was terrifying when that happened. Yeah, that Easter Bunny was freaky too.
Dude, that's literally stained into my childhood. Is that specifically because in that room that he's in, like the doors it's like a Tim Burton room,
Tim Burton, yeah, for sure.
and then the lighting, but the bunny, and then the military guy and the grandma really fucking like stained my young brain. I never forget seeing that in the theater. But I didn't know
Yeah.
that was
Even that shot, dude, the first time you see Death in Bogus Journey, and that shot where Death is just like in the distance standing there and they turn around, they're like, what was that? And then he's gone and he's standing there. I mean, after that, it gets hilarious, of course.
Right.
Like when they're doing the best 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe this guy. But yeah, there were some scary moments in that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this was just really, really fun, and I love how they brought in all the characters, and there was that whole scene when in the therapy where they're doing the couples therapy, and the whole thing of like the us's and the we's, and it's like, all right, it's like, give it a try, dude. Just the way that they had that whole thing, that was just so fucking funny, and they come back, it's like, you go back and you make it worse. You're a dick, Ted.
Yeah, and then I think Bill commented on how he's like, Ted, why were you so weird with other Ted? Or he's like, why was that such a? He's like, I don't know, I couldn't handle myself. I forgot what he said, but
yeah, it's just like
like
every time I looked at you, I saw myself. Yeah, me too. Oh my god.
that shit never gets old.
No. Oh my god. Yeah.
Did it, man. That's the hope for 2020 is they succeeded, man. They changed They harmonized the world. They united everybody. And in reality, what was the whole line? Like they got to
And
save.
save reality.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's like turns into that. It's like that's new and just like Bill looking at them in the future, like save reality. All right, all we have to do is write the world's best song to unite the world in song and harmony and save reality through time. Dude, we've been writing this song for 25 years. How are we gonna be able to do this?
Yeah.
Oh my god, it was so good. Oh, dude, and then like the last shot was very 2001 Space Odyssey, man, with like, you know, the one thing that changed. You see that Saturn is like Saturn arrives, Saturn appears in the
Oh,
sky,
yeah.
and Ted is like, I think it's a lunar eclipse.
Yeah.
Bill is like, I don't think that's a lunar eclipse, man. It's a lunar eclipse. Yeah, and then fucking Saturn is there, man. That's
I forgot about that. I guess. Yeah. Saturn just appears.
and stays
Huh.
there.
Interesting.
Yeah, when San Dimas becomes like the new center of space and time. Maybe we should move to San Dimas.
Is San Diego's really a place? I don't think it is.
Yeah, oh yeah, it totally is.
Yeah.
Yeah, San Dimas, the Raging Waters is a real water park.
Oh yeah. I feel like we've had this conversation before.
Yeah, I've never been there, but
Fuck it. I'll start looking at houses in San Dimas, man.
yeah, fuck it, dude. We're moving to San Dimas, man.
It's like it's kind of near-ish LA, right? But it's kind of like I picture it like where Rancho Cucamonga is, like I don't know, west or
Yeah,
east.
I think it's east of LA.
I mean, it has to be, right? But
Yeah, well, of course, right. It's I think it's north of Riverside.
okay, yeah.
Let me see here.
San Dimas.
Yeah, San Dimas is north of Pomona.
Pomona, okay. Which was like when we went there for that concert, that was about an hour away.
Yeah, so it's in between Riverside and Los Angeles, basically on the 210.
Okay.
Yeah, Raging
Okay.
Waters temporarily closed.
I was gonna say, yeah, is it open?
Yeah, no. But yeah, dude, that's oh man, it was super funny, dude.
Yeah, very, very uplifting experience. Everybody needs to see that movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it got a good score on I think it's got like 80 something on Rotten Tomatoes, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
it
the
was
fact
good.
that they did. Yeah, I'm happy they did that. And could have only happened now, only in 2020. There's no way this movie could have come out, even 3 years ago.
No. And dude, the timing of this movie to come out right when Chadwick Boseman dies, which is so fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, and the timing of that, man, like he died on Jackie Robinson Day. That is like weird.
It was right after Steve's always on the internet, so he's always the one who like texts me when somebody famous dies. But I just happened to be sitting in his basement this time, and we were watching like Roadhouse afterwards, and he was like, "Oh,
nice.
shit, Chadwick Boseman died," and I like had to be like, "Wait," like it just didn't. I was like, "No," because first of all I thought he was in his 30s, but still 43, and then I was like, "Wait," that just didn't like comprehend. And then he was like, "Yeah, colon cancer." I was like, "What?"
That is
I
like
just
super young to die from that.
Oh man, and yeah, apparently you've probably seen, but he had cancer the whole fucking time.
Yeah, I think he was diagnosed in 2016, so it was like either during or probably during the production of Black Panther.
Yeah,
that he found out.
That's so crazy, and nobody knew. Like
Nobody
even
knew.
the director of Black Panther like wrote a nice like message about him, and he said he had no idea
Yeah,
that he was even sick. So
God, yeah, that's just like so devastating, man. I watched the other night, Mare and I watched 21 Bridges.
yeah,
You
that's
seen
his
that?
last movie. Is that his last movie?
Yeah, I believe so.
I have not seen it.
Came out in November
Okay.
last year.
Did you like it?
It was okay. It wasn't bad. I didn't think it was bad. It was a, like a cop, like detective movie. He's the son of a cop who was killed, and like there's these cop killers they're trying to go after. It's funny when Mare and I started watching, we're like, we're watching like a Blue Lives Matter movie right now?
Oh yeah.
Like, what the fuck is this? And no, and then it turned out, you know, not necessarily to be like that, but still, that was good. And then last night I watched Number 42. Have you seen that? The Jackie Robinson movie that he played?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
That was really good.
It was that. I think that was the first time I ever saw him as an actor, or like recognized him. But I really, really liked him in that movie, to be honest. But obviously, a lot of it was Jackie Robinson's like demeanor and character, which I really, really liked. But
Sure.
Chadwick was perfect for that role.
Yeah. And it's a really just, I mean, timely movie for now. So like last night we watched Bill and Ted, and then I watched Number 42, and then watched the third episode of the net new show Lovecraft Country on HBO. Have you heard about that?
Haven't no.
Dude, this is a fucking cool show, man. It's produced by Jordan Peele and J.J. Abrams,
Okay.
loosely based on a whole bunch of H.P. Lovecraft stories, I believe, who was one of the most like prolific sci-fi horror writers
Oh, wow,
of
okay.
I think of like the 20th century or something like that. Dude, I highly recommend checking this show out. And it's cool because it's pretty much entirely African American cast, and watching Number 42 and then this, it's just like it's great to see more movies that are portraying that side of the story. It's like it seems, I mean, of course timing is everything, but it's just like, you know, it's good to see more African American centralized storylines going on.
Right. Yeah. To normalize it. You know, I've been getting pretty deep into a lot of Chadwick Boseman stuff has popped up, obviously, and like feel good stuff, and then just people kind of sharing their reactions to it, and like why it was such, because it was obviously a really big deal when it came out. You know, like in the whole fucking world.
Black
And
Panther.
obviously, yeah,
Yeah.
and obviously we're not black, but you know, it really impacted people, and you didn't really think about it, but it was like a lot of people are like, this is the first movie that I could take my kid to where the superhero looks like us, you know, and never really thinking about that, because every superhero has kind of looked like you and me since forever.
Yeah.
So just like that, and then the powerful, I saw somebody made a comment about like, oh, it was like he was on Chadwick was on Jimmy Fallon, and it was like in a thing where they have, you know, fans come up and they're like, all right, speak into the camera, and it'll be a message for Chadwick that he could watch later, and then Chadwick's behind the curtain. So they give their messages, and then he's like, hey, what are you? And then they like freak out, and
Oh, shit.
it's a really cool thing. But this one woman said she loved the like the females in Black Panther because they were powerful, and they weren't powerful because they were angry. They weren't powerful because of like other emotional bullshit. They were just powerful because that's how they were.
Yeah.
And like portraying Black women like that was such a first in so many levels.
Yeah.
And it really, really had a really big impact. And he was obviously great in it. And I forget fucking Busta Rhymes.
Busta Rhymes.
He was just like, I could see it. You know, we were standing 10 feet away from him. I didn't want to like stare at him, but I kind of was looking at him, and I could just see him talking to his buddies and being like, explaining how that was so important. Like he was just like, that was a major, major thing that happened there, that they did that. Like you could see how impressed he was, and how happy he was that movie had finally been made, you know, and that was only 2 years ago, right? Or 3 years ago. It's so crazy for a movie like that to come out. It just took so long. But I agree with you. And then there need to be more movies like that. And then with 42, this moment really stuck with me. It was where a white kid was in the fans with his dad.
Yes.
His dad yells the N-word, and then the kid looks up at the dad, and he
looks all nervous. He's looking around like everyone else is doing it, and then he starts yelling it too.
That was such a major moment.
And then it was like Pee Wee, I think, or whatever that other baseball player on the Dodgers was, and comes over, who was sort of like, you know, unsure about the whole situation, and he was the one that got the death threat from like he came to Harrison Ford and was like, I got this death threat. I live in there. And he's like, oh yeah, death threats. Ha, 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 and pulls out like folders of death threats. And he's like, you should feel proud that you got that. And then like it changes it. And he goes over to Jackie Robinson, puts his arm around him. And it's like, what the fuck you doing? And he's like, I need people to know that this is who I am. Like, we're on the same team, man. Like, and then that cuts back to that kid. Like, I'm getting chills thinking about it. Cuts back to that kid. And it's just like, oh, because it's such an impressive, you could tell that was perfect acting. That kid just was just exactly the way that racism is
Passed along.
Right. Yeah. Oh my God. Like, so incredible. And then like, I loved it. That scene where in 42 and Jackie Robinson's on the train and he like those little kids are there and he threw the baseball to him and he's like, hey, catch, and the train rides away and they run after him and then the little kid like puts his ear to the track and he's like, I could still hear him. And at the end in the credits you find out that kid was actually like ended up being on the Amazing Mets back in 1969 who won the World Series. And it's just like the ripple effect and how inspiring that is. And it's like there's nothing as compares to an inspiring baseball story. It's just it's just baseball. It's a game, but the way they made it, it's like this is it right here, man.
Yeah, and especially that story, above all, almost that is like the baseball story, obviously. And of course, it the symbolism of him being number 42, with the
right
that number, and then now that number is retired in baseball. So
yeah, that was the weirdest thing. Finding out that Chadwick had died, and then at the same time was watching baseball, was watching the Mets play the Yankees in a Subway Series doubleheader. And I'm like, everyone's wearing the 42, and I'm like, oh, and so it's Jackie Robinson Day, and it's like, holy shit, Chadwick died on Jackie Robinson Day. Like,
yeah,
that is some big time. We are living in the Matrix type shit. Like, and really, it's not the end of the year yet. It's not shaping up to look very good in the course of history. But just to think of how this year started with Kobe dying, and then like the way we're at, it's like almost like Black Mamba, right?
Black Panther.
Black Mamba and Black Panther. Holy shit.
Yeah. And it's not even September yet.
Oh my God. Aliens are coming, man. It's not going to be pleasant.
They're going to be black though. So it'll be okay.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and what's that?
No. Well, I was
just going to say Black Panther is such a Shakespearean movie in a lot of ways. Like, I mean, it wasn't necessarily when we watched it, I wasn't blown away by it as a Marvel movie it was great. It was good, but it wasn't wasn't anything other. I mean, the socio-political implications of it were even bigger than necessarily the story. But when you look at the story, I mean, just in general, that people consider Africa to be this dark continent where it's so primitive. And this story depicts, no, it's like at the center of Africa, there's this city called Wakanda, which is a hidden city, which is the most advanced city on the planet. And it's like it's like the richest, most wealthy planet. And then at the end of Black Panther, it's like the beginning of the disclosure. Like once he takes over, it's like, we're going to go in and we're going to start sharing our technology with the world. And they go to the United Nations and they're like, we are now ready. Wakanda's ready to share its wealth with the nations. And everybody's like, Wakanda, they're a third world country. What do they have to offer? And then it just cuts to Chadwick and he's just like, yeah. What do we have to offer? We'll show you. Yeah. And that says it all right there, man. It's that our perception of history, our perception of civilization is totally skewed, and it's hiding right in plain sight is something amazing that can change the world as we know it.
Yeah, man. And thinking like along those lines, initially I was upset and I saw it as like kind of a bad sign when Chadwick passed away, but now I'm like, no, because of like the symbolism of the movie and what actually happens, to people in Wakanda when they pass, they're not gone, they're their ancestors, and like the death isn't the same to them as it is to everybody else. And to me, it was like a a symbolic kind of almost like self-sacrifice that I now see as a good sign. Like, and now that's another symbol I think that people can use. There's going to be a lot more, Wakanda Black Panther theme stuff going on in the protests. I think, I think it'll just kind of inject some more spirit. Yeah. Yeah. Like that's powerful,
It is.
And so I choose to see it as a positive thing now. And since that it was kind of inevitable, at least it wasn't like a tragic accident of, like something horrible. This is obviously really bad, but like it was natural causes and it was happening over time, and he was with his family, and as far as major people dying goes, that was a less traumatic.
Yeah, like compared to Kobe dying, even just
right.
a fucking helicopter crash.
They're almost the exact opposite, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm hoping this is kind of like, just
like it's the way it seems to be shaping up in the next like century, 100 to 500 years. I feel like a lot of the superhero movies that we're watching now and enjoying now as entertainment are going to be immortalized in a way that, like, in the future, these will not be considered like movies. They will be considered like real people. Like Black Panther in 1,000 years from now will be carved onto the rocks in the deserts of Sahara Desert or whatever, and they'll be like, Black Panther was the great guy that did this and that, and then he'll be considered to be a real guy, and he'll be indistinguishable from mythology. Like, it's just a modern day mythology. That's what those are. But the fact that things like this are happening, it's just, and dude, the synchronicity of the 42 and what that represents, and it's like God's number, with everything. It's just we're at that we've talked about this, how we're in an era where the blending of fiction and nonfiction is happening, and I think in the future people won't be able to tell the difference.
No, I mean, everything is blurring. And then also with like the hindsight, when you're looking back through history, and you can more easily see things for what they were. It was like these big movies were so representative of what was happening in the world. It's hard for us to see it. You and I could kind of pick it apart and say how this represents that, but I feel like most people wouldn't say, oh yeah, like Avengers, that makes total sense. It represents our whole world. They wouldn't. I don't think most people would say that. But looking back and like you said, hundreds of years, it'll be like, that's more accurate than a book written about what actually happened. It's like, just watch the fucking Marvel universe and it'll explain everything that happened.
Yeah. I think that's how mythology as we know it today really is. Today we have these great stories of Mount Olympus and Zeus with the lightning bolts, and then this guy came and did this, and then the serpent entered the garden and tempted the thing, and the apple, and like we have these stories which I firmly believe are rooted in reality in one way or another. Whether or not they're exactly the way that we remember them, that's a whole nother question. But if you can like look at it fractally from the past into the future, sure, you can watch the Avengers in the future. Maybe they won't know the difference. Maybe they'll like literally think Iron Man was a real person. They won't know the difference. Like Galaxy Quest, like the historical documents. Like, you remember Galaxy Quest with Tim Allen?
I do, but I don't remember it.
I'm gonna put that on. I gotta put that on Plex. It's such a great movie. But like, the aliens in another world are watching that TV show Galaxy Quest, which is like Star Trek, and the aliens don't know that that's a TV show. They think these are historical documents. So they build a spaceship based on the TV show, and then they go and like get Tim Allen, the actor, and he's thinking he's on a show, but really it's like, this is a thing. So it's and then they had to explain that the show was not real, it was make believe. But the aliens were so devastated by it, like, oh my god, we thought it was real. Like, in the future, I feel like they could totally, it's plausible that they would look at the Avengers and be like, this really happened. But then again, like, if you were to not even be so gullible to think that, like, you can see everything that's going on in the world. Look at Tony Stark. He represents the military industrial complex. Look at Thor. He represents the ancient gods from outside this world. And then you've got Captain America, represents the genetic modification super soldier program. And you get all these people coming together to stop some sort of threat. Thanos, like the whole thing, like you can interpret. So it's, again, like we're doing the same thing that we've always done. We're taking the real stories and mythologizing them. And I think that's one of the most powerful things we can do as humans, is our ability to tell stories. And like, makes me think too how, I forgot where I was watching this, but how memory is one of the most fallible things that we have. And the older we get, the more loosely associated those memories are, and we start to remember things not really the way they were.
Yeah.
So but like the way that we tell the stories, it gives power to them. So whether it's real or not, it's like, doesn't matter, because the stories have so much power to them. And then like Black Panther as well, you've got those two brothers that they're two cousins that cousins that have their heir to the throne, and this guy comes to power. And Black Panther too, like even the like foreshadowing of how Thanos has been portrayed as a villain is not like your classic one-dimensional villain that you're like, oh fuck this guy. Michael B. Jordan is totally a Killmonger. Like, you feel bad for him, like the way Gabe, do you remember that? Well, you were there when Gabe said that, right? When Gabe, my nephew, I think we were sitting with my sister and my brother-in-law. We were sitting there talking about how Gabe thought about Black Panther. When they showed Black Panther to Gabe at the very end of the movie, it was just like dumbfounded by it. Like, I don't like this movie. And Kim's like, why? And Gabe's like, well, Killmonger wasn't a bad guy. He was just trying to do the right thing, and the fact that he died sucks. So this movie sucks.
I kind of remember them saying that.
Like, he said it in his, 6-year-old language, but that, I totally resonate with that, because, that's just goes to show you that we shouldn't be looking at things in terms of good and evil and, oh, good, the bad guy's dead. Like, you feel bad when Killmonger dies. It's a tragic thing.
Yeah. And T'Challa didn't want him to die, and it's the stories are becoming more and more realistic, I guess, and they're not papering over, they're not being whitewashed or power washed by the people that are writing them or telling them, or and stories are our source of survival, I think, on a lot of levels. Initially it was you telling a story to your kid so that they know when to run away from a tiger, or a bobcat, like telling them a story about something that happened so that they can kind of be better at life, and then the wisdom of the elders and like how to live, and it's survival. Storytelling is survival. So you need to preserve that, and obviously it's just evolved a lot. But I like kind of where we're at this point. Hopefully it stays at this point where any story kind of has an outlet now, especially with all the new like Netflix and Amazon and all this stuff. Like, there are just so many outlets and opportunities for all these different stories to be told now, without some sort of intense bias or like a big studio saying, oh, you can't say that, or having the military come in and be like, no, you can't do that. And it's like, it's encouraging that we can keep telling these stories. And I feel like I don't even know if they would have been able to make Black Panther 15 years ago. Like, if there would have been enough, like, especially because it was such a big movie, like studios might have just been like, no, can't do that. Don't want to make that story right now. It's just like, the fact that it even got made, which is crazy, because this world is, our country is so racist, we see now, but it's storytelling, man, always so important.
I imagine, like the time that fascinates me the most. Joe Rogan actually asked Graham Hancock, who's one of my favorite. He's like the real Indiana Jones in my opinion. Right. So like, they were on a podcast together, and Joe Rogan was asking him, like, if you can go back in time to any time period, they were talking about Egypt, I think. And he's like, wouldn't you just want to go back and see the beginning and like how they built the pyramids? And Graham Hancock's like, honestly, I think I would, if I were to go back in time, I'd like to go back to like 10 to 13,000 years ago to see that period of time at the end of the Ice Age, which is the most misunderstood, cryptic time of all time, where we had this end of one civilization, the beginning of another, with the Great Flood and all of the cataclysms that were happening. Because as far as we know, or we think we know right now, there were no real like advanced cultures or like high thinking type, high civilizations or anything like that. But the fact that they're very well could have been, and I think absolutely were, intelligent people around. Imagine being around when it's like you're literally in this wonderful garden and everything's thriving, and then just this, whether it's asteroid impacts or massive cataclysms of some kind, just totally traumatize you and put and force you out of that garden metaphorically into survival mode. And then, you know, life has to go on. It's like we got it. How do we lost our technology. We can't, you know, just telepathically communicate this to everybody. Like, we have to preserve history. We have to preserve this. And they did it through storytelling. Those stories are prolific today in the sense of like all religions come from these stories.
Right.
It's like we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the fact of stories. We would just be dead.
Yeah, and you have to think that really affected the development of the brain too. Being able to tell stories and understand stories. You know, I feel like that was us teaching ourselves kind of how to think, and the memory and being creative, and you know, morals, and the you know, like the Joseph Campbell, the hero's journey, like the reoccurring themes that happen. You know, it's inherent, but then also, yeah, you're doing it to pass along. Yeah, history is important. It's important to know what happened, you know, for many reasons. But yeah,
and the original storytelling of the verbal oral storytelling through the power of vibration, just, you know, thinking from, if you want to look at it in the hierarchy, first, like, imagine a telepathic culture where you could just like think it to somebody. It's just like the thought like quantumly teleports into that other person's brain receiver, and then they get it. But then let's say we forget or lose that ability to do that. Okay, now we need to, and we're in a vibrational way of life. Okay, now the best way to use vibration is to use our voice and to vibrate, tell the story verbally, so it goes to the next person. And then it really activates the imagination. And that's one of the things about indigenous storytelling from indigenous cultures that like really captivated me. The first Sweat Lodge I did, which was with Anthony Kerrigan in South Dakota, which was like that was the first time, because he's a sun dancer. It was the first time I ever even heard of a sun dance was from Anthony Kerrigan. And but like the elder, his name was Albert, he was in the lodge, and he was telling this great story, and it was so moving. And then he said how this story is the same exact story that my father told me, and it's the exact same story his father told him, and his father told him, going back generations and generations, the exact same story. And it's super important that we teach our children the way to tell the story as much as what the plot points are, essentially, because, and then the sum of it is like, when I tell this story, I am connected to my ancestors. It's like, I never knew or got to meet my great grandfather, but when I tell the story, I feel his presence within me. And that really meant a lot to me, because like I never met my great grandparents, like most of my great grandparents. It's like, man, what an concept to be able to know your ancestors through the power of story and verbal oral storytelling. Because then, like, over time, when people started to write shit down, which sure might, you know, is a good invention, but the problem is when you write stories down, it leaves a lot of room for interpretation, because you're just looking at these dead letters on a page, and you don't have that. It's almost like it's the game of telephone.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when you tell a story to somebody and then somebody else tells a story differently, and you don't rely on that importance.
Yeah.
Of, you know, like getting it exactly, like you have to tell the story exactly the way it is. And Freemasons, that's part of what the Freemasons do. When you become a Freemason, you go up in the ranks, you have to memorize a book and recite the book word for word with the same cadence in front of all your Mason brothers. And until you're able to do that, like word for word exactly, you're not able to, you know, proceed up the ranks. So there's just something about the continuation of the story and sharing that vision.
Well, yeah, it's like listening to a song compared to reading the lyrics. You know, you could like you don't know this song. You may be able to read the theme of it or what it's about, but unless you hear it, you don't really know like the emotional connection of it. And yeah, and storytelling, I feel like even more than that. Yeah, the inflections and what's emphasized, and then obviously how animated you are and bringing people into it. You know, like you're a great storyteller because you get, you know, you have the passion about you and you can kind of bring the story to life, so to speak. So there really is a lot of value in knowing how to tell the story, you know, and that translates to movies too. Like some people have great stories they want to tell, but the execution in telling the story leaves a lot to be desired. You know, that's why there are so many different aspects of filmmaking. Like there's the person who creates the idea and the writer, and then there's somebody who interprets the idea and tells it, and then there's an editor too and a producer. Like all these people have different perspectives on how to tell a story. But the great storytellers are clearly the ones, like the great directors, who know what you need to see, how you need to feel. Like, because you could shoot, you know, we could have the same equipment and story and everything as, you know, Martin Scorsese, and then we shoot a movie, try to do it exactly how he do it, and it'd be a horrible fucking shitty movie. Same actors, same everything, but because they have that storytelling vision, you know, like they just know. And obviously Stanley Kubrick was super effective. Like he knew exactly what he needed to show you in order to make you feel a way, so you could go along with the story and it wouldn't just kind of fall empty. And that's really what makes the great storytellers great, is that they can make you feel that, you know. So even just having that quality, or somebody in your family, like that, just it's a really cool idea. Like, oh, Uncle Bill, you know, he's the great storyteller, or he knew the story from Grandpa. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Uncle Bill.
You know, there really
Yeah.
is an art to that, and I really like that idea of, you know, the guy connecting with his ancestors through this story and telling it the same way that someone he never met, but his bloodline. It's just a really cool idea that
Yeah.
this is a family story, and I kind of wish there was something like that. I'm kind of lost with my culture, you know. My dad was adopted, and my mom, like there's not a lot of substance to my culture, and I'm just kind of a random, you know, average Caucasian person. You know, there's not like I have a deep rooted German or Welsh or English. I have all that in me, but there's no, like, you know, it kind of leaves a lot to be desired from me and my ancestry. You know, you have a little bit more with, you know, Italian and Jewish, and there's a lot going on. Russian Jews, and a lot more stories. I just rewatched American Tail the other day again. Thought of you guys.
Oh, nice. Dude, yeah, speaking of American Tail and all this stuff, have you seen American Pickle yet?
No,
Have you heard about it?
no.
Dude, okay, so it's on Plex. It's the new Seth Rogen movie.
Okay, that sounds more familiar.
It's hilarious, but it's kind of like my family history a little bit. Of course, it's hilarious, but it's without giving too much away, Seth Rogen is like a Russian Jew who comes to America, ends up working at a pickle factory, falls into a vat of pickle brine, and ends up getting preserved for 100 years. And like, you know, 100 years later is 2019 in Brooklyn. So it's just like this, like old, you know, like Seth Rogen, you know, Russian Jew immigrant, like trying to, you know, make sense of the modern world. It's hilarious. But yeah, that's like the same story of like running from the Cossacks and all of that. Yeah. Yeah. And dude, you know, that another thing about the storytelling that's kind of interesting, and the more I think about it, makes a lot of sense with plant medicines like mushrooms or ayahuasca, which I have not done yet. But from what I imagine, that in itself is like one of those things that it's like a hard drive where, you know, humanity has been discombobulated for thousands of years because of all the traumatic shit that's happened, and we've separated, and the story and the plot points get lost. Certain cultures have the story, but like, you know, like, do you think nature that dumb that it wouldn't preserve the story somehow within nature, that like, oh, if the humans forgot the story, then it's all just dust in the wind, dude?
Yeah, right.
No, like it's the mushrooms and the psychedelic experiences, that those real, like, serious ancient plant medicine experiences. I think those are like, here, it's like the red pill. Here, take this and you will go through the story will be told to you and you will see it in a way. It's just like the same kind of thing of like, bypassing the whole the observer and just like here witness the story, kind of like in that movie Paul, remember, with was it Seth
Yeah.
Rogen, where
Yeah.
the alien like puts his hand on the people's faces and like and they like see the entire history of the world and they like fall over and they're like, oh, I get it. That's kind of what those experiences are like if you do them
Yeah,
in the right setting.
Yeah, there seems to be the overwhelming theme, for people just from seeing interviews and my experiences, limited experiences, is that there's a general consensus in how those drugs kind of make you feel and what they show you. It's not like this person and this person have completely different, stories. It's like, no, there's a pretty overlying or underlying like overt theme to all these really intense plant-based drug experiences. Like Tony Soprano doing peyote, and I get it. There's so many of those kind of like I get it. Like there's that experience of like, oh, I see now. Like you're showing me. Yeah, it's like everyone's just seeing a different version, their version. Because you're interacting in the experience. So you're influencing how the story is told because it needs to be effectively told to you. It couldn't be told to me the same way it's told to you because it wouldn't, interfaces differently. So, but yeah, the theme clearly is like this. The same story is being told through mushrooms, ayahuasca, and stuff
And
like
dude,
that.
back to Black Panther. That was
Oh yeah,
that was the rite of passage to how he became the Black Panther. In the very beginning, he had all these warring tribes, and then that asteroid hit the Earth, right? Okay, because this is all part of the real story. Like Dr. Graham Hancock, the ancient world was devastated by this asteroid that hit the planet supposedly, and then they ended up like the panther spirit guided them to eat that special plant and gave them the powers of the Black Panther. And then whenever after they had that ritual where they would like battle each other, then the new Black Panther, first you would have to like take away the power, and then once you became the Black Panther, you had to eat it, and then he went into that dream plane where he met all of his ancestors and told them everything. It's exactly what we're talking about here.
yeah. It's the reoccurring theme. And then it just makes sense to anybody who's gone down that path, and then these last couple of years now, when they're finally allowing, people to study these plants and stuff like that for actual benefit, not for an agenda, like every day it seems like, oh, new study shows that, microdosing psilocybin is really good in battling depression and addiction and all these things. And I just saw something about ayahuasca too. It was just like, who would have thought all these things are like, they're actually medicines. They're not just things to get you fucked up. And we're finally now being able to kind of delve into them and be like, yeah, if you use this, you don't have to take, a whole jug of ayahuasca and trip your face off and puke and shit for 4 days. Like that's just what, some people do. But there's a lot of different ways. Like my sister, I've been trying to tell her more, because she lives in Chicago and weed is legal there and there are dispensaries, and she's having stuff going on with her brain. And I'm like, it's worth a try to kind of, you don't have to like smoke a bong. You don't have to like, rip a joint. Like there's little gummy, like there's just so many different ways. There's oil, there's lotion, there's like little gummies. You don't have to get super fucked up. Like they are medicine, like you could just take a little bit and it'd be like, oh, this is helping me relax or whatever. Like there's just so much more. We're still overcoming, obviously, that all this fucking negative press that drugs have gotten, except for alcohol and tobacco. Like all the other drugs have gotten,
two of the biggest killers on the planet.
Yes, yeah. They're on the right side. The white people like them, so it's okay.
Yeah, right.
And I remember, I don't remember if somebody on Joe Rogan, but I really like the idea. We probably talked about it before, but like that, that drugs or mushrooms in particular are kind of like an alien species, and in order for them to tell you that story, you have to like ingest them. I always really liked that. Like you could see that as, like you said, like your ancestors. You're kind of taking a dose of your ancestors, and then they're like, all right, here's the show. This is what you missed, the last 2,500 years.
Dose of the ancestors.
Yeah. They catch you up, previously on the last 10 generations of your life.
Yeah, previous. Yeah, that's totally. I remember the first time I did mushrooms with Patrick, and that was like, of course, a breakthrough experience. But it was at the same time that the fountain suddenly like made sense to me, because that was right, like, you know, like 6 months after I saw the fountain for the first time. And that whole like intercut between past and future, I remember looking at Patrick and just seeing like the cut of like, I'm like, oh my god, it, like, I get it, it makes sense now. But we had this funny thought of like, you know, because to think about it, mushrooms grow on cow patties, cow shit.
Yeah.
So like, think about shit comes, you know, you eat something, goes into your system. It doesn't actually go in. It's like the Uncle Bruce talks about this all the time, that when you eat something, it's a misperception that you're actually putting it into your body, because the body is it's a tube. The mouth from the to the anus is a tube. So when you put stuff in, nothing actually goes into your body. Like, eventually things will permeate through, but you end up excreting the things you don't want. So anyway, like, you put something, you know, put matter into your mouth, it goes on the journey through the system of the cells, and then vacates, and is now this like this awful waste product. You think you'd like, oh, gotta walk away from that. Give it some time, a mushroom grows out of it. And then eventually, you know, our ancient ancestors started going down off the trees and being like, oh, you know, after they shit off the tree and there's all this shit everywhere, there's mushrooms growing everywhere, like, oh wow, just eat this. So then they eat the thing, which
Yeah.
is like the it's almost like when you eat that thing, it's like going on a vacation and you've got a little like, you know, a disposable camera, and you're taking pictures along your trip throughout the world, and then you get home and you develop the camera and you look at the pictures. It's like when you eat the mushroom, it's like you're like looking at the pictures of the story of the thing that went through the system from beginning to end. And it's like the wisdom of the cells, you know, it's the death and rebirth cycle in action. So it's like, yeah, it's it's an interesting time, because it's, yeah, like you said, it's becoming, I mean, it's becoming less taboo, really, and
Yeah.
it couldn't be more appropriate.
No, did you see recently that they're talking about decriminalizing weed nationally?
Yeah,
That
I mean, well, I've heard about, I mean, I've heard they've mentioned, I mean, is that like
I
somebody?
saw something a little bit more serious about it like a couple days ago. So, and then it would obviously be up to the states to figure out how they want to do that. But if it's because there's always that overlying thing, you know, like it's legal in California, but the feds could always come in and, you know, raid a store if they wanted to, just for being dick, because it's technically federally
Yeah,
legal. But I mean, yeah, just big steps in those. I don't think Joe Biden's going to do anything to help that, but
nah, probably not.
it's definitely going in the right direction.
Well, yeah, that's, and that actually I was thinking about that the other day, because I remember when before weed was legal here in California, I remember driving from Oceanside to LA. This is years ago. And I had smoked some weed in the car on the way up to LA. And when I got on the 5, I was driving, and then there's that checkpoint on the 5 by the nuclear power plant. And it had been co-opted by the US Marshals. They were doing some sort of checkpoint. So it wasn't like just police you know, was it chips or anything like that? It was actually like federal officers. And they pulled me over. I had the Thor in the car with me. They pulled me over. They smelled weed in the car, and they're like, do you have marijuana? And I'm like, and I just was like, I have a joint. I didn't smoke it. I didn't smoke it in the car, but I have weed in the car. And like, they're like, are you sure you don't have this, you don't have that? I remember I had a Ron Paul bumper sticker and like an End of Fed bumper sticker and a NASA bumper sticker. And like, they went to, and this might've been my white privilege for sure. Like, cause if I was black or something, they would not have been so like light about it.
Isabel, stop.
So they ended up like confiscating my joint, and they were like, we see you have a bunch of bumper stickers on your car that are political and that, you know, the system. It seemed like a weird, vague thing. And they're like, we're going to let you go with a warning, but you can't come through here. And I'm like, I showed them my medical marijuana license. I'm like, and they're like, it's illegal to have marijuana. I'm like, I'm in California and I have a medical marijuana license. They're like, yeah, well, this is a federal checkpoint. I'm like, well, I didn't know you were going to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wouldn't have had it in the car if I knew you're going to be here. Like, I'm not trying to break the law, but like, here's my paperwork saying that in this state, which you guys happen to be fucking like co-opting one of the checkpoints, this says I can be here. And they're like, oh, well, eventually they let me go. But still, it was like, yeah, like you were saying, it's up to the states. But then if the federal level, if it's illegal, the federal government could just show up at any time and be like, oh yeah, it's legal in your state. Well, guess what? Your state's in our country.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like, fuck you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, hopefully we're moving past that. We got bigger issues
Yeah.
going on.
Well, it's happening, man. Like there's, I think in Oakland, Oakland and Denver, magic mushrooms are decriminalized,
Yeah.
which is like a huge deal.
Yeah.
Huge fucking deal, man. Like it's not like Amsterdam, but it's
Right.
certainly like you can grow mushrooms and not have to have the fear of God like stricken in
Yeah.
your heart, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Imagine telling that to 2007 you and me. That'd
Yeah.
be wild to hear. you
Yeah.
know?
Dude, oh my God. That, you know what we should do? When you come out here, we should make like a short movie in that
Okay.
style of like Bill and Ted style, where it's like us sitting on the couch and then future us's show up and like tell us like, yes way, Ted. Like like we should film that. I found when I was at my parents' house, I found a Spoonception. Like I found a poster board with some like Spooncention when you came out to Crestone. And
Uh-huh.
remember we shot that little video?
Yeah.
We made,
With your
I got
drone.
yeah, with the drone, right? That's like like I have some like Spooncention paperwork that we made.
Nice.
But we should do something like that again when you come
Yeah.
out here.
I'm down. And I was actually thinking about that earlier today too. That when we live together, we should kind of have little projects like that, little video projects that we were always kind of working, even if it's like 1 minute, like just to have little things around the house or wherever. It's like if you got an idea, a nice thing to break up work and then also just kind of be constantly creating content.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a million things. When we live together, we it's like, oh, what if we do that or that or that? It's where all our little stupid fucking movies come from. But I feel like we should keep encouraging that when we're back, because I've been out of that environment for so long. Like you've at least been around people who are like create and have equipment, like disconnected from that for over 7 years. I'm like, I'm missing that. Let's shoot a fucking stupid 5-minute movie right now. Like I'm definitely missing that in my life. And I get so many ideas all the time. I'm just like, there's nothing I can do. There's just nothing.
Dude. I'm so excited, man. That's going to be one of the things we should also do when you come out here is we should just for the hell of it, like go to a camper factory and like look at campers.
Fucking do it, man.
Yeah.
Let's fucking do it. Or we can find some really nice old people who are buying a brand new camper. Like we could just like drive around town. So who's got multiple campers and be like, hey, if you're ever thinking of offloading your $75,000 camper for a very discounted price.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like those are the kind of people that like those retired old couples that, spend $100,000 on a camper.
Yeah. They want to get a new one, get rid of the old one.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
I like you boys.
Yeah.
I like you boys.
I can't see over the wheel anymore. So.
You remind me of my grandson.
We're in.
My grandson would want to have this camper.
Yeah.
I'll give it to you. Yeah. That I couldn't agree more, man. Like having those little projects and things to do. It's like branching. Like when we're living together, we'll be able to branch out beyond just like the editing, writing, post and pre-production world, and actually just make stuff.
Right.
Even those like shorter little videos and things like that. Like there's no reason why we can't do that. And I feel like we'll be totally motivated to do that. I think that when you come out here, because of course I've been around people that have that vibe, but it's still the same thing of like looking back on the golden years of when we were in college and like, oh man, remember when we used to just like be free and just make things when we wanted to, and now it's like, hey, let's make something. All right, but we don't have enough money. Okay, let's do this. We got to write a script. It's putting all these roadblocks in front of us. Like that still is a thing, but I feel like when you're out here, you and I, our dynamic will be able to bypass that like very easily, because we're in a lot of ways we're doing it for fun and with the knowingness that it's going to be, a good project.
Agreed. And we're really good at exciting each other. Like, you do jazz me up all the time, and I think I do the same thing for you. So like if we have little projects, it's like I think we're the best like hype men for each other. We're like, yeah, let's that sounds like a great idea, even fucking stupid as hell, which a lot of them will be, but it's like, that sounds fun. Let's do it. And then we do it and they're like, yeah, that was dumb, but that was fun, you know, like,
Yeah.
and now we got another 2-minute video that we could
Yeah.
put on.
And
I
we
feel like
can do the whole
should start-
process, man.
We should start a YouTube, a separate YouTube. I know you probably got like 4 or 5 by now, but
A new one, yeah, for sure.
a new one just for like the house and just for our specific content. And then when we start doing podcasts in the same room at the house, you know, together, I feel like we could start putting them on a separate thing, because what we've been doing is kind of its own thing, you know, the last couple of years, or
Yeah.
we've been doing pretty consistent podcasts for like 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah, man. We've got like, I think like 50 videos or some shit.
Really?
Like,
50? Holy shit.
let me see. I'm curious because I know
We've
we
definitely
have a
been
bunch
doing
of them.
them consistently since I was in my last place, and I moved in there in 2017, I think.
We have what does it say how many we have? Uploads.
Well, you
all
have some
videos.
up there with what's her name, like A2K.
Yeah. Let me see here. But all together, I mean, there's a whole bunch, man.
Yeah,
Quite a few. We started back in 3 years ago.
3 years ago. Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole bunch of them, a good amount. But yeah, I agree. We should have you know, a new channel, make a website. We do the whole thing. We create an updated version of everything.
Yeah, and then when we can actually have a proper setup for doing a podcast, you know, and then we can have more of a system, and then have because there's a few different soccer podcasts that I watch, and some of them have the same people in a couple different ones, but they segment it to be like, this is in that vein, this one's going to be uploaded to that site, this one's going to be uploaded to that site. I feel like distinguishing that is good, because we've made a bunch of random stuff together, but it's kind of a smorgasbord, you know. It'd be better to kind of be like, have a theme, or have like in this vein and this spirit. Then we could start making content based on that, and then obviously have, you know, Mayor come over a lot and be the third wheel.
Yeah.
Do you have more time? I was going to run to the bathroom real quick.
Yeah. I got some time. I'm gonna grab another little drink here.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Yeah.
All righty. Ahoy.
Ahoy. Yeah, I'm excited. So I figured out today that basically I'm halfway through my stint here at my parents' house. It's been about almost exactly 5 months, and then it's about almost exactly 5 months till February. So halfway there, but then I was like, fuck, think of all the shit that's happened in the last 5 months. And then not to mention we have a presidential election in 1 month.
If you want to call it a presidential election. Oh my God. So much shit's gonna happen, dude. Like, this is we're just I was joking with Mayor about it. Like, we're gonna look back on these times in like 30 years from now and be like, man, remember when things were easy back in 2020? It was just a pandemic. You know, Donald Trump was the president. I think it's like, man, thought it was bad then.
That's been in the back of my mind, of like, in the back of my super negative, conspiratorial, like evil plot mind has been like, what if this whole thing was just to get everyone begging for Biden and making it overwhelmingly look like he's the man, and then as soon as he gets there, it's he's Frank Underwood. He's the fucking bad guy. Like, that's
absolutely.
I don't think that's what's happening, but like in the back of my mind, I'm like, everyone is so easily like, I don't even care. Biden sucks. Just get him in there. You know, everyone will be him in there, except for obviously the crazy people. But it's just like, he doesn't have to do anything, right? Me and Al were talking about it the other day. Like, he doesn't have to do anything except not look stupid, because he's not winning anybody else over. Like, it's almost, I don't know what the numbers of undecideds are right now, but I feel like, well, I don't know what they are, so I'm not going to guess, but it doesn't feel like, feels like if people have made up their mind at this point, like, you've seen enough, you know, from what you're going to get with Trump, and then you know what Biden is, because it's just going to be whatever a broke ass version of Obama or what we've seen from the Democrats the last. It's nothing crazy. It's just status quo. But so it's like it's a very clear picture of what you're going to get with both. So I just don't know how people would be undecided right now. But it could get fucking yeah. I could be.
I don't see it going well. I mean, like I used to say expect the worst and get the best, but I heard someone say it better as to hope for the best but expect the worst.
Yeah.
I think that's where I stand because
Same.
it doesn't look good in terms of looking at the system as it is and trying to make things better the way that we've always tried to make them better, expecting that they'll get better. I just don't see that happening. Like, today I had there have been every day I look at Facebook and I have it's almost like, all right, let me just scroll through Facebook really quick, just see what's on Facebook and get out like real quick, like before it's too late, because usually I end up seeing some shit and it's happening more and more. People that I wouldn't expect to be posting things that like really irritate me. And I'm just like, I get to a point where I'm like, I gotta fucking write something. And then I'm like, no, just delete, just get out of here. Just go walk away. But today I ended up posting a few things because I saw like
I saw one. Yeah.
Yeah, there's
And
some like
I
QAnon
saw that
stuff.
there was a block of comments. I didn't get into it though because I was worried,
Yeah.
of getting something. But I saw you had definitely responded to a couple people, right?
Yeah, like the whole idea that Trump, QAnon and Trump, like I was even talking about this with my dad because it's just amazing. Like I see my dad too because he voted for Trump, and I remember when we went to Sundance ceremony that year in 2017 or 2018. It was like, oh my God, Dave voted for Trump. How could you vote for Trump? Trump's so against everything we're doing here. And now I'm starting to see a lot of the people that are at Sundance are starting to be like what you were just saying, like, what if Joe Biden is the worst thing? Like, what if Trump's actually the good guy? What if all this QAnon stuff is right? And it's just like boggles my mind. And now it's like seeing my dad where he's just like, we just got to get Trump out of there. And I'm like, yeah, but Joe Biden is like not the fucking answer. He's not the answer. And in fact, he could make things worse because the thing is the reason Trump is in office, in my opinion, is because people are so dissatisfied with the neoliberal corporate Obama Clinton paradigm of politics that they were like, fuck this. Well, we'd rather take a game show host who seems to be on the outside. I mean, he says it how it is. But the thing is, it's like they do this all the fucking time. And that was what I posted today. It's like, if you think, like the thing about what did I post? It was like QAnon people assume that, it's like I said something like, I don't doubt there is a satanic, for lack of better expression, a satanic cult at the upper levels of the echelon of socio-political power. But to assume, like the QAnon people do, that, okay, well, you got two sides. You've got the Democrats, who are the Satanists, and the Republicans, who are with Jesus and the light and stand for liberating from the Illuminati. You're just falling into the same trap that has been laid out before us every fucking time. And it's like, that's like you were like, it's me agreeing exactly what you're saying. Like, I mean, not that I'm like put all my eggs in that basket, but I'm a little weary that like, what if this is all part of the fucking plan? Just like you have Bush for 8 years and then Obama shows up and it's like, oh, of course we'll go for Obama. And then Obama just furthers the agenda that was already in place. And then it's like, oh, then Trump comes in, promises all these things and then just furthers the agenda of those people. And it's like, if you
a whole new level,
yeah. And like I'm just concerned that that Biden, since he doesn't really stand for anything other than that he's not Trump, and sparks the idea in people's minds like, hey, remember Obama? Remember when Obama was president? Like, remember how he sounded? Look at Trump. I'm not that. Like, that's what you're running on. Like, if that were to win, which could happen, anything could happen. But if that were to win, what I'm really deeply concerned about is that somebody worse than Trump is going to come along. Because imagine if somebody like Trump but actually was intelligent.
Right. Yeah, we were talking about this last time.
Right.
Yeah.
Take over and like get like a QAnon president. Like there are already QAnon people in Congress and shit. So I'm concerned. Like I'm concerned that it doesn't look good for America as we know it. But I'm not pessimistic that like, all hope is lost. It's
Right.
just like, we're going through this dark time, and until we recognize that we're doing some dark ass shit and that we take our power and give it to these people thinking that they're going to fix it. Oh,
Mhm.
Trump is the problem, or oh, Biden's the problem. No, they are the symptom of the problem.
Right.
We have authorized it.
Yeah, over and over again. And that was my big reason for not voting in 2016. And I do admit that I should have voted, but that was my main thing. It was like, I don't condone this. And, Al was very upset with me, but like me voting is saying, I'm okay with what's happening. I just prefer it to be going better, or this way instead of that way. So, because I don't condone it. And I think we're getting to the point that a lot of people aren't condoning it. And my hope, and I've seen this a little bit online, is that when Biden gets in there, we'll hopefully be so jazzed up still that no one's going to settle. Like we're kind of in this spirit of like constantly being like calling shit out. I feel like everyone kind of feels comfortable in calling shit out now. And not just saying like, okay, we're fine now for another 4 years. Like, I think if, and hopefully when Biden gets in there, people are going to keep up the like keeping tabs on these motherfuckers. Like if they do something wrong, they're going to be like, no, that's not what you said. And people are going to be more, I feel like protesting will become more of an acceptable thing, and showing your public like disdain, or, showing your public, just that you're upset, and I
Dissatisfaction.
think dissatisfaction, right? I think that is becoming more acceptable and more of a normal thing now. And so if Joe Biden and his people get in there and they start doing stuff that they said they weren't going to do, or stuff that we don't like, I think people won't just accept that it's Joe Biden. I think it almost plays into the favor of the country that he is not a candidate that people really are excited about. So they won't have any, like if Bernie was in there, people might be a little bit more like, well, it's Bernie, we got to trust him, and letting him kind of slide on stuff, if he's like, but I feel like with Biden, because nobody really likes him. I mean, a lot of people do like him, but like a lot of people who are going to be voting for him are because he's not Trump. Yeah. So I think they won't be like loyal servants to him. And so when he's in there, I think people who voted him in will still be critical of him. I'm hopeful that we will still remain critical, and then call them on their stuff, and then kind of keep that momentum going, because obviously we've been complacent as a people for so long. And then 9/11 happened and we got scared, and everything since then. And then Obama made us more complacent, like, oh, everything's fine. We got a black president, blah, blah, blah. And now it's kind of like, shaking everything up like we've talked about before. And I really hope we just kind of keep the spirit alive, because first of all, systemic racism is not going away if Joe Biden gets elected. Black people are still going to be getting killed by police. Joe Biden doesn't give a shit about defunding the
Those
police.
fucking assholes, 17-year-old assholes with fucking assault rifles are still going to be a thing.
Yeah. And it's all going to be the same thing. So I think, we'll just have a better stance. We'll have a better placeholder in Joe Biden, somebody that in theory will be more open to listening. He'd be more actual law and order and trying to like listen to people and get things done. Mm-hmm. But I mean, Black Lives Matter is not going to go away. Like, it's not going to go away. And it has an objective to become equal.
Wait, you mean BLM? You mean burn, loot, and murder?
Yeah. AKA I'm a racist. So I think that we've kind of, as they say, awoken the sleeping giant. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's going to go back to sleep no matter what. I think this is going to be a thing now. No matter who gets elected, we're going to stay on as
yeah.
So there's going to be people who are, nope, this is not good enough. Not good enough. Until we get to a tipping point, and we get people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and young, vibrant people who are going to do things differently, and it's actually going to work. It's not going to be Bernie like, oh, he's different, he's great, he's listening, and then it just, oh, didn't work out again. I think it's going to actually start working again.
Yeah.
That is one option, and then the one that you pointed out too, of the scary, younger, more articulate Donald Trump type.
Yeah.
Because I mean, basically a Hitler, like someone who's good at speeches. You know, he's very
Yeah.
captivating. Donald Trump's not good at speeches. He's a fucking idiot. But there's a lot of idiots in our country, so they're like, "Oh, you're dumb. I'm dumb. Like I like the way you sound.
Yeah.
And we're dumb together, right? We look out for each other. We're dumb. Yeah. Yeah. So that's good. That's going to be something we're always going to have to deal with. But I think it really we're like a tipping point. Really, really, really close to continuing the revolution and actually changing things and making things better, because people aren't going to just accept the Joe Biden. Remember 2008? Yeah, man. It's like, no, fuck you. We're doing stuff now. We're doing
Yeah.
stuff. We're not just keeping everybody happy again. We're doing stuff. Sorry,
Mhm.
sorry, Joe. You gotta be on the move. And if you can't handle it, get the fuck out of here. Like I
'Cause
can't. I
either
cannot
way.
see him having. I cannot see him having 2 terms no matter what.
Oh no.
Even if the Democrats get reelected, I just can't see him.
Oh, you won't. Kamala will
And-
take over if that were the
Yeah,
case,
I can see that happening.
which is alarming a little bit. But the thing is, like, again, like the main point, I think, like what you brought up, that either way, this giant is not going back to sleep. Whether it's Joe Biden or Donald Trump, things are not just gonna, like, after the election just be like, all right, everyone, the politicians go back into their holes and we just continue on and wait till the next election. Like,
And I think that's going to be a rude awakening for the boomers, because the boomers are really expecting, no matter what happens, can we just get back? Can we just get back? They're not going to. It's not going back. Sorry to cut you off there. But
yeah,
it's
no, don't
never
be.
going back.
It's not going back. Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, people are, the country is, until we have a leader. Like, and the thing is, like, I love AOC. I think she's great, but the thing that I'm not so convinced about in terms of her being like a president, at least as like, of course I would love that, but like in terms of the greater country, the thing that concerns me is that she's not, and I don't consider this a fault of hers because she stands for what she believes in, but she's not someone who necessarily, like, looking at the bigger picture. You've got, like, let's say Joe Biden wins, you're still going to have that half of the country that's going to look at this as like the communist takeover of America, and nothing
Yep.
that she would say or he would say or any of the fucking lefties would say is going to change their minds. Nothing. And that's the thing that concerns me. It's like, no matter what, with whoever we get, whether it's Donald Trump or Joe Biden, it's the line is just getting deeper cut into the sand.
Yeah.
So until we have a leader who, or a movement really, that says, instead of looking at the things that divide us, let's look at the things that unite us. Sure, there are a lot of issues that are very serious for people, like pro-choice or pro-choice and pro-life. Guns, anti-guns, gay marriage versus not gay marriage, like those like 5 to 6 fucking things that every time there's a debate, they're like, what do you think about this? And like, well, I think this. And then the other half of the room is like, boo. Like, until we start looking at the things that unite us, which is a conversation contrary to and antagonistic to the powers that be, which is not right or left. It's that crown that sits above the double-headed eagle. It's like, doesn't matter which side is in charge. Like, you've got this corporate We Say So corporation that is like from the show The Dinosaurs, the We Say So corporation that owns both sides of the narrative. Like, why is it, if there was such a resistance to Donald Trump from the Joe Bidens and Nancy Pelosi's of the world, why is it that they're funding and allowing him to have bigger and more substantial military budgets? They're saying on one side of their mouth that Donald Trump is a Russian asset. On the other hand, Trump is like, well, give me more money for the military. And they're like, sure, here. It's like, are you really opposing this man?
Right.
I don't think so. I think it's a lot of like just doublespeak and hypocrisy. So until we have a leadership movement that focuses on the things that unite us rather than separate us, we're going to be in this loop of destruction until we destroy ourselves from the inside. And the thing is like, in that, I showed you that video, the most recent one I did of Uncle Bruce, right? With the butterfly and the caterpillar and Tunisia and
think so.
and the putting the finger in the dam, the finger in the dike.
yeah,
I'll send it to you again, but like
yeah.
it's you know in this video, Uncle Bruce tells the story about Tunisia in Africa, the country that was ruled over by a malevolent dictator, and there was a revolution with the Arab Spring, where they're like that one guy forgot his name, but he was so fed up with the system that he went into a public setting and lit himself on fire in front of everybody. He was like, this system's fucked, lit himself on fire. That caused the Arab Spring. And there was a revolution in Tunisia. And then there was a revolution in all these other countries. Not to say that it was like, you know, a best case scenario thing, because like in that chaos, there were things like ISIS that came in and exploited it. But on the other hand, with Tunisia, they overthrew that dictator because they were just so fed up with the tyranny. And then they got together and were like, all right, well, we don't have a government. Let's get a government together. And they sat and debated and talked about how are we going to make this new government in Tunisia? And for a long time, they were at a stalemate because both sides of the, you know, whatever, you know, like in their world, Republican and Democrat, which is not what it is, but like in their secular battle, they just kept being like, well, we think this, and well, we think this. And then the thing that happened was that the women were allowed to be in parliament, because before this revolution, women were not allowed to be in parliament. Once the women came in, everything changed, because women started to say, hey, instead of focusing on what we don't want or what we don't agree on, let's focus on what we do agree on.
Mhm.
And they were like, okay. And then they start, okay, well, do we all agree that we should have freedom? Yes. Do we all agree that we should have health care? Yes. Do we all agree that they like went through and found the most things that were agreeable, and that separated or brought things together, took the separation, brought it together, and to a point where the Tunisian government was actually awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for their outstanding performance as a democratic country.
Mhm.
And it's not because they found resolve in the things they don't agree on. It's because they just said, hey, let's see what we do agree on. And that's the thing in America. If we like looked at the things that we all agree on and that we're all united on, there is way more power in that than the things that separate us.
Yeah.
You know, like
That makes sense.
it's until we have a movement or a leadership that's going to come in. And that's why I personally love Tulsi Gabbard as a potential president, because of course she leans more onto the left, and I agree with ending the wars, having universal health care, you know, caring about the elderly, social security, like all the things that like the left likes. But again, back to that thing, it's not just the story, it's the way you tell the story. The way she tells the story is a way of inclusivity. Her and Bernie Sanders were the only people that went on Fox News to even talk about these things.
Right.
Whereas Elizabeth Warren, Pete Buttigieg, and all these other fucking assholes, Joe Biden, they were like, I'm not going on Fox News because those people are racist. Why should I talk to them? It's like, you're already off to a bad start, dude.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, not all Trump supporters are racists. Or no, not all Trump supporters are racist.
Yeah.
But all racists are Trump supporters. You know, so it's like, yeah, but like, it's like you don't just like cut off half the country, you know, and say you're all wrong.
Yeah.
We have to learn how to communicate and like bring people in, and there's more shit that unites us than ever. So it's like, until we start doing that, I think we're just going to keep doing the same bullshit over and over again.
Agreed. Yeah. And it comes down to being honest as well. Like, you know, Trump is the opposite of honesty. He's the most dishonest person you can imagine, but you need somebody up there who's not just, you know, saying empty platitudes like, you know, politicians do. Like Joe Biden is just the perfect embodiment of a shell of a human. Is just saying things that people want to hear, and that you don't feel like you don't know if he believes in it at all. You don't know if he's saying it. And so there's this veil of uncertainty, which makes it dishonest in some way, you know, because you don't believe him. And I think in order to do that, we need in order for somebody to bring people together, I think it needs to be an honest person as well, and not, you know, calling calling it what it is, instead of just painting it in a different light, or trying to say everything is okay. There's just a couple issues that we need to deal with, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, we need like a real reality check, and somebody, like you said, into the Tunisians, and show what everybody wants and what we can agree on. I've seen videos of people going into, the classic, like, making protesters look dumb, or people at rallies look dumb because they ask them a question and they ask them a follow-up question and nobody knows what they're talking about. Like, I support Trump because he says this, and he's like, well, what about that? And they go, oh, I don't know. And it's the same with the Democrats too.
Yeah.
And but when they phrased it in a different way and not making it seem like a political thing, pretty much everybody agreed on a lot of different things. They didn't call it Obamacare. They didn't call it, Biden's policy. They just said, hey, so if someone were to try to do this and they want to get these things done in order for that, would you be about that? And people were like, yeah.
Yeah, that was exactly what happened when Bernie Sanders was at Fox Town Hall.
Yeah.
And he was like, show of hand, like, and it wasn't even Bernie that said that. It was like a total backfire of the.
I remember you telling me about that. You're like, yeah, because he's honest. He's an honest guy.
And the Fox News pundits were like, all right, like we like, we'll show everyone how stupid Bernie Sanders is. Let's get a show of hands. Who loves their health care who has health care with their employer, and who loves it? And like, some hands like went up, kind of like like a couple hands went up apprehensively. Yeah. And then they're like, all right, well, who would be willing to ditch that for some sort of single payer healthcare? Thinking like no one would raise their hand. Yeah. Everyone was like, and it was like, and Bernie's like, see, I told you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why even having him in the room, or, potentially in the running for a little bit, was a glimmer of hope to me, because that's the kind of person we need. But we don't need an old white guy. We've had enough fucking old white guys, But the way he spoke and the way he presented himself and the way he was honest about how things are and how they've been was really, really a step in the right direction. Obviously, the Democrats ignored that, but that's the kind of vein that you need, is because you can't bring people together if you're being dishonest, unless you're, David Wilcock and the Watchmen. So
the Vite. Yeah, dude, that's so funny how much he looked just like David Wilcock in that.
Yeah. But it's like, okay, yeah, you can do some dishonest things to bring, that guy was dishonest, but he brought the world, he saved the world.
We need to kill Dick Cheney in order to save the world, basically.
Right.
It's like, but wait a minute. And that's like what Dr. Manhattan said, which is kind of similar to what you said earlier. It's like, without condemning or condoning your actions, I understand. It's like, yeah, I see why you did what you fucking did. I'm not going to condone that, but I'm not going to condemn it because it worked.
Right. But I think at this point we would need the honesty with that as well. I don't know if it's not a good route to mislead people or be dishonest in order for a better outcome. I think that just kind of sets you up for disaster in the long run. I think we just need to be very honest with ourselves as a culture after this. I wish we could almost like have a reflective, couple of weeks in between the presidents. If Biden gets elected, I wish there was like, all right, everyone stop and just fucking let's talk about shit.
No president for a month.
Yeah, just look in the mirror and see like an assessment, just like, this is where we're at. This is what's happening. This is the trend. And if we don't do something, this is what's going to happen here. Like, where do we want to go? Like, we just no one's stopped to reflect in so long. And it's been such a circus for so long, especially since, probably ever, but I guess, from, hey, come here. No, come here.
Abigail?
She tries to sneak down and lay on my pillow. She's only allowed to be on the foot of my bed. Abigail.
Aw.
But she tries to sneak out and put her little
furry dog.
Little furry butt on my pillow. I think I'm not looking. I caught
Yeah, man.
But yeah, we need to be honest with ourselves, man.
Yeah.
I'll always say I understand why people jumped from when Bernie wasn't the guy, and as soon as they said Hillary, so many people jumped right to Trump, because he was not. He didn't seem like he wasn't the regular run-of-the-mill bullshit. He's his own unique bullshit, but he didn't sound like a politician. And
And he was saying all the things that people
Yeah.
wanted to fucking hear. The way that Trump took down the Republican convention was revolutionary. Like that, like if I was more passive with the chess moves, if I was more like the computer in a human versus computer chess game, if I was more like the computer and didn't have any thought and see Trump make that move as a person, I'd be like, oh, well, of course, then Trump is the guy.
Yeah.
But
Right.
like if you start thinking about it, it's like, no, this guy, if you look at his history, this guy's fucking swindling people his whole fucking life.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, of course, like you said, like it makes sense that people switched so easily to him.
Mm-hmm. But now he's become, he's used to being in the spotlight for, a minute here and there, or on his show, kind of a glimmer. And even on his show, Hasan Minhaj, the guy who does like the Patriot Act thing he's a comedian. He's an Indian comedian. He did one of the Correspondents' Dinners a couple of years ago, or this last year.
Okay.
He's a political guy. He's done some good interviews. He did a good interview with Bernie Sanders and AOC and other people. But he was on the Hot Ones like interview, where they eat hot wings and then they talk.
I love that show.
And he was asking the guy, I think his name is Sean, like what he thinks about Trump, and the guy's really good at not being, getting too political about it. But he was like, I always really liked the Apprentice, so he was like a fan of the show and the drama of it. But he's like, even in that show, Donald Trump like outsourced hosting to his sons. And he was really only there in the beginning of the show and at the very end of the show to like set everything up, have his moment, and then leave. And then at the end, he would come back and, do his, you're fired thing. And so people, and then, Home Alone and the movies he was in, and then just like in the spotlight, he was always just like a glimmer and like a sparkle.
Yeah, The Simpsons, WWF.
Yeah, so it was just like, oh, haha, Donald Trump, and then you hear the things in the background of his shady dealings, but he hasn't gone away, in 4 years or 5 years at this point. So it's really kind of just, there was no getting around seeing the truth of him, So like when he's running for president, you're like, all right, maybe, yeah, I don't know, Trump, he's different. That's cool. Like,
and dude, like a big part of that is the fact that Hillary Clinton was his opponent, who is the most unlikable, most clearly corrupt fucking person that like, even though Donald Trump is a fucking scam artist and like, he's saying all these things. It's like, yeah, sure. Maybe it's not just a simple matter of like listening to Trump and being like, I kind of agree with that. It's more like, what are your options? Either that or Hillary Clinton. And
right.
Most people are like, fuck that.
Yeah.
And it's like, how perfect. And that was all brought on by the fucking Clintons. They were like, had the bright idea, like, we'll just get Donald Trump in there and people will be like, oh yeah, he's so bad. And they'll clearly vote for me. We'll win in a landslide. And like, you clearly
out of touch with reality again.
Totally out of touch with reality.
So, and now they still are. They really still are.
Big time. They're doing the same thing again, expecting different results. I'm concerned they're not going to win. I mean, who knows? Because this is like the most fluxing time. We don't know what's going to happen. Anything could happen, And like the fact that they're calling Joe Biden like from the RNC. Did you see any clips of that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, that like Rita Repulsa Guilfoyle woman, Kimberly Guilfoyle, who I just found out today, by the way, was I think married to Gavin Newsom, the governor of California.
Oh.
And now she's dating Donald Trump Jr.
Yeah.
Like
drugged out of her mind.
Weird. Like the best is yet to come. Like very like, did you see that Rita Repulsa meme from Power Rangers? Like they had like
completely insane.
But the fact that those people are calling Joe Biden, like they're like Matt Gaetz, all those Republicans, they were just going on about how Joe Biden is this communist, socialist, far left, take away your guns and your jobs and he's going to destroy the suburbs. I'm like,
nobody would ever say that. Nobody.
Joe Biden? Like I could see them saying that about Bernie Sanders. Like that would be more plausible. But Joe Biden? You
Yeah.
think Joe Biden's a communist? Really? He's a Republican wearing Democrat clothes.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. That's all they got now.
That's all they got.
I was just watching. Did you ever watch This Week Tonight with John Oliver? I think I've asked you that before.
Oh, I love it. Did you saw
Yeah.
the most recent episode?
I was just halfway through it when we started doing it here, but like all they're doing is lying about everything, and Trump's been called on that in those two kind of recent interviews, the one-on-ones with him, where the actual interviewer was calling him out on his shit, and just saying stuff about Joe Biden. Like, he didn't say that. He didn't say that. Like, he's not about that. He's not about defunding the police. He's not about this. And all they're doing in the RNC is literally lying about everything.
Lying about everything.
Literally lying about everything. So they don't care at this point. They're just going to say whatever they need to do to rabble-rouse their base to make sure that they vote for them. But they're not trying to win over anybody's votes. Yeah, there was a clip in there of Mike Pence saying, we need to work together, to solve this with us and our
African-American neighbors.
Yeah.
Like
us and them.
as if they're not American. Like,
Right.
that's that. Yeah. I was
It
talking
says it
about
all.
this episode with Mayor, dude, like right before we got on the phone on the Zoom here. That particular Last Week Tonight was just usually, I mean, it's funny, but this one was just like, oh fuck. It was more just straight up like depressing and infuriating than funny because it's just so fucked up.
You know what we need right now? We need some new The State of Us episodes.
Oh, dude, yes. State of Us, man. I would get more involved in that if we were to do that
Does
now.
Mayor still talk to those guys?
I think so. Maybe. I actually saw one of them, Charlie. Every now and then I've seen him, like not this year, I don't think, because of the plague, but yeah, I've seen Charlie a few times.
I like them. They had a good thing going. I hope they're still doing
Yeah.
stuff along in that.
Yeah.
in that vein.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's still an episode with Machiavelli in there.
Right.
I watched that from time to time. Episode 11, I think, and he's wearing a tie.
So there's this I wanted to at some point I wanted to like segue into this. There was this movie I watched with Uncle Bruce when I was up there this last time called Mr. Jones. Did I tell you about this the last show or podcast at all?
No.
It's based on a true story of this journalist who starts off with this journalist after he had interviewed Hitler and Goebbels and Himmler on an airplane before World War II started.
And
And
based on real life?
based on real life, yeah. And so it starts off at like in the early 1930s, mid 1930s. And so this guy like interviewed Hitler and Himmler and goes back to the British intelligence, and he's like, there's this war coming, these people are crazy, there's like a whole war coming, and these guys are psychomaniacs, and we need to stop them. We need to like get all the countries in the world to fight these people because they're going to invade everybody. And this journalist went back to Britain and told these like his leadership, and they were like, oh, come on, like that's ridiculous, there's no way that's going to happen, Hitler's not that bad of a guy. And at the same time, this was, people don't know the history, which is amazing to me. And like when I learned more about the Russian Revolution, the fact the Russian Revolution happened at the very end of World War I in 17, 18, 19, somewhere in there. And that's when, the Soviet Union was born. So the Soviet Union wasn't really around for that long before World War II, like Stalin taking over. And the thing is, at the time, the world was completely ignorant about the Soviet Union and communism. People looked at communism. There were actual newspaper articles written about communism as the Great Experiment. They called it this great experiment, implying where the worker class actually has rights and no longer gets to be abused by the monarchies that had been prevalent for hundreds of years before that. So everyone in the world was like looking at Russia and the Soviet Union before World War II, and even during World War II and after World War II, being like, hey, this could be a good fucking thing. And so this journalist after interviewing Hitler and seeing like, the war is coming, we need to get people on our side. And everyone was getting reports from Russia and the Soviet Union at the, like in the 1920s, 1930s, that they were like thriving. Soviet Union is thriving. They've got great industry. They've got great food. Everyone's living happily. It's just like every word you hear about Soviet Union is great. And this guy's like, we should go. I'm going to go to the Soviet Union and try to like rally them to be allies against Hitler.
Okay.
And it was this whole story. It's a true story. And like the British intelligence is like a whole secret covert op thing. You had to sneak in the Soviet Union. And it's kind of like, did you see the movie The Interview with James Franco and Seth Rogen? Like when he went to North Korea and they get there and it's like, everything's great. Look at all the food we've got. And like, turns out it's all a big facade. That's essentially what happens. So like this guy goes to the Soviet Union and the Soviet KGB are like, look at all the food. Everything's great. And he already heard stories like, no, man, you should go to the Ukraine and see what's really going on there. And he had to sneak away. It's this kind of like, thriller kind of thing, him sneaking off the train, going into the Ukraine. And it was a genocide. Like Stalin literally was stealing all of the wheat and grain from the Ukraine and letting them starve. So like when this guy, the journalist, finally went to the Ukraine, saw everything was all fucked up. It's like, okay, communism, it's like this great experiment's going completely wrong. And that was like the seed for this idea that communism is evil. And now the reason I bring up this historical context in this movie, Mr. Jones, which I'll put on Plex at some point here soon, is like when we look at what's going on now with Bernie Sanders and this whole socialist idea movement, like in people's minds, socialism equals communism equals evil equals tyranny. But in reality, it's not as simple as that. I think it's like there's like Bernie Sanders, what he's talking about is a really good idea. Like, and I segue to Bernie Sanders because it's like a modern day version. Communism was founded by a leader named, or a philosopher, Karl Marx. He had these great ideas of like, what if the worker class all worked together and there was no more kings and this whole thing. But then once that went into action, unchecked, tyranny just took over. It doesn't matter whether you got communism or you got capitalism, you're going to have tyranny if it's unchecked, if you have this hierarchy.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting to see like there seems to be a balance that needs to be had. It's a balance between the individual and the group, capitalism and socialism. I watched this podcast recently of this, I forgot his name, but like it was like a super intellectual fucking dude, like really smart guy. I'll send it to you. You should listen to this. This guy's like really, it blew my mind, like the level, the depth of what this guy was talking about. But talking about how the idea of like the conservative mindset, like in today's world, like Trump and conservatism, it's like, protect what's yours, like it's not about, like pick yourself up by your bootstraps mentality. It's based on this idea that was made by John Locke in the Renaissance or the Enlightenment period, which is that it's based on an assumption that human beings are autonomous individuals and that there is no social network among, like, if you look at nature, any group of like bears, humans, plants, whatever the fuck you look at, it's just, you got to look at the plant. You look at the tree. You don't look at the forest. This tree is trying to survive. The forest is irrelevant. Like the forest is just made up of all these individual trees.
Right.
It's just a bunch of individuals trying to survive. And then this guy in this podcast I was listening to was saying like, that's a bunch of bullshit. Like, especially when it comes to human beings. Human beings are not just these autonomous individuals. We are social animals. When we're born, we're not able to survive in nature by ourselves. We need to be nurtured and protected and cared for by a community of family and friends and your tribe or whatever. So it's like this false idea that like individuals, like this whole Republican idea, fascism, capitalism is the way, communism is evil. It's like it's almost just, I don't know where I'm going with this other than just like there's just so much fuckery and misunderstanding about the balance of nature and the idea of the individual and the collective, and that it's a choice. You have to choose whether you want to take care of yourself or take care of other people, as if it's a choice. And it's like, no, we are all one. It's like, it is both. It is fucking both. We need to be able to take care of ourselves and the collective. And I'm just hoping that Bernie Sanders, this is the thesis of and the conclusion of what I'm trying to talk about here. So for, thanks for humoring me on this, but I'm concerned. I'm just hoping that Bernie Sanders does not become like a modern day version of Karl Marx, who had a lot of great ideas, but when implemented by Stalin, turned out to be a fucking awful situation. So it's like it's again, it's that balance about how we tell the story. Like Karl Marx, like this guy in the podcast, like he's like, if Karl Marx was around today, he probably wouldn't be a Marxist. Karl Marx had all these great ideas about community and the workers, and like if he actually saw the way that those ideas were implemented, he would not be into them. So like my concern is like, again, it's like this teeter-totter, like the people that switched from Bernie to Trump when he endorsed Hillary, boom, boom, like switching back and forth. If we keep doing that, we're just going to keep repeating the same fucking tyrannical bullshit. We need to have a balance of these ideas. And until we have a movement and a leadership that embraces that balance, that says, yes, we're not going to agree on everything, but instead of talking about the fucking thing, like talking and bringing attention to the things that divide us, just talking about the things that unite us. Like and the media is a huge part to play in all this deception, because they frame the questions. Every time there's a debate, well, what do you think about fucking babies and pro-choice? What do you have to say about that? It forces them to be like, well, I have to take a side on this or that.
Right.
Until we have a fucking leadership movement that just says fuck you, like I'm not answering that question because that's a bunch of bullshit. Why aren't we talking about the things that unite us all?
T'Challa,
right and left. T'Challa,
dude, uniting, bringing the tribes together.
Yes. Fuck.
Man, it's so clear that that's what's happening too, and it's in such an extreme level now that if you're, bills aren't getting put through just because it's a Republican or a Democrat putting it through. I'm sure they won't even read them. It's just like, I don't care what's in it, even if it benefits me. I don't want to do it because they want it. That's how it's at the penultimate divisive moment where they're not cooperating to spite the other one. And right now, it's like the Republicans aren't passing through another bill to give another stimulus check to people just to spite the Democrats. So like all of these people in America are getting fucked and are going to get evicted because the Republicans are like, well, the Democrats want it and we don't want it. So screw 100 million people. Like that's where they're at the point right now, that it's so childish that they'll do anything. They'll do anything to further divide it because they're already so indebted to their tribe and their mentality. It's like, nope, I'm not even open to that because it comes from somebody I've labeled a Marxist. Like so when this thing happened in Kenosha and this kid went and shot people, there's a conservative subreddit, and it's pretty much what you'd think it would be, but like the label of the title of the article was like, Marxist protesters are shot while attacking 17-year-old boy or something like that. It's framed like they called them Marxists, like ha ha ha, these stupid fucking communist Marxist kids are chasing somebody with a gun. What'd you think was going to happen? And then on the more liberal part, because Reddit's more of a liberal site in general, on the liberal ones, it's like, this kid who was a cadet in the Kenosha police, and he was at front row at Trump rallies, and there was just, I don't know if you saw, there's a video of him punching a girl that just came out yesterday.
No.
He was like defending his sister in a parking lot, and these guys are in a car like filming, like, oh shit, what's going on? And then and then his sister like gets in a fight with this girl or woman, and then this kid comes up from behind her and starts punching this girl or woman like in the face, like just kind of cold cocking her, like complete like bullshit punches. So that's the kind of character this kid is, but it was just framed in such a way that like, oh, these are Marxist communist terrorists and they want tyranny, and so that this kid had every right to go shoot people and kill them. He's a true patriot, you know. So just framing it in that way, people are just so, it's just ridiculous. So everything is polarizing at this point, and you know, I don't blame a lot of people on the Black Lives Matter side for just being kind of upset and not necessarily wanting to listen to anything anybody says on the other side, because so often it's such bullshit. But it's tough when neither side is listening. You know, there's just two sides yelling at each other at this point.
Yeah.
And nobody really wants to listen to anybody. They just want to be heard. But it's not a constructive way to do it, you know.
No. Well, that's like, again, just this, like from the Gospel of Chris, chapter 1. Keep it simple.
Yeah.
There's things are much more simple than we chalk them up to be, because and it's simple. It's as simple as this. The answer is, it's not one or the other. It's both. It is both simultaneously happening at the same time. It's not like a Borg, Star Trek, like unified singular consciousness, all thinking the same thing at the same time. Kind of like it's all, you know, it's both. But it's like a Venn diagram. You take two circles, you put them together. There's an area where those two circles come together and they are one. And that's how you create a chain. That's how you create a link in the chain. That's how you create structure. It's like it's good to have polarity, you know, like a battery. You know, a battery has both polarities in it. And that's the only way you're going to be able to power your fucking CD player in 1998.
Yeah.
It's the only way it's going to happen. And like, you look at the cell, you look at the body, look at the human body, like all the great ascended masters said, look within, you'll find the answers. You are a community. You're a community of cells that if you scrape some cells off your arm, they can live without you. They, you know, like thousands of cells can live without you. But when they all are all working together, there is a singularity. There is an individuality. Right. And a community at the same time. It's like your mind is the singularity. It's the individual. Like, I am me, but at the same, you wouldn't be you unless you had a community. That's the essence of it. So we need to have a new structure in place that allows these things to come together, because it's, again, that false assumption that human beings are autonomous individuals who just are trying to survive. Like, no, like Into the Wild, that was the whole moral of the story. It's like, you can't live on your own.
Well, and I think this quarantine, these last couple of months have really shown that too, and how many people are struggling with depression and anxiety and just being closed off from other people, you know. And that's part of the reason why some people just gave up on it, you know, and just like, fuck it, I'm gonna go party anyways. Is because, you know, in theory, they're risking their lives. They can trick themselves into believing that that's not the case, but they're risking their lives to be social. That's how badly we need to be social as human beings. Like, this has not been an easy time for people because we can't interact with each other. And that's a lot of it. And I think a lot of the craziness that's coming out of this is because we've been kind of cooped up and, you know, we've been restricted, and a lot of that is the interaction. You know, people just love going and being by other people, even if they're not interacting with them. And that's you know, one of those commonalities that you were talking about. Like, figure out things that everybody can, you know, get on board with, and it's that we like being around other people. Yeah, we get it, Republicans. We know why you want to have rallies, and we know why you want to have, you know, in-person conventions and stuff like that. We get that. We want that too. You know, we want the same thing, but, you know, we're being tricked by ourselves and by our leaders to think that you want something different, therefore makes my life worse, you know. And the epitome of that is them telling women that they can't have abortions. It's like, what does that have to do with you? But they've been tricked into thinking that hurts you somehow. It's like, no, it's think about their, it's like the Venn diagram I'm seeing, which is I'm sure been said a million times. It's like Democrat, Republican. Yeah, cool. What are we all though? We're all fucking Americans. Like we want America. Yeah, we want America. Nobody doesn't want America to be great. It's not like we're against Make America Great Again. We're just not. We think that's not the right way to do it, and we also think that you're not actually trying to make America great again. But it's not like everyone. It's not like the Democrats and the Marxists and the socialists want to make America worse. Like the fact that some people think that is such a systemic problem.
Well, and dude, like that, and to give credit to that way of thinking, I think there is a group. Talk about a Venn diagram. You got two circles that come together, and from those two circles, you get a third party or a third viewpoint. Two separate things. That's just the nature of life. But if you look again, second time referencing this in this show now, like the Illuminati Scottish Rite symbol of that double-headed eagle with the crown on top. There are actually three parties. There is a hidden party that doesn't have humanity, let alone America's best interest in mind. They don't see this as a consequential thing that we need to work together. Like they don't recognize that the third party emerges from the two coming together. They just see it as, let's have two separate parties, and then we will be that third party, and we'll be hidden. That way, it's like it's a way of bypassing and honoring that rule that there are three sides to every story.
Yeah.
But you're doing it in a way that is completely unnatural because there is no third circle in a Venn diagram. I mean, like, yeah, I guess you could make a multiple circle Venn diagram, but the thing is, like, there is a group that totally wants to exploit, pillage, and take from nature and ourselves. Like, see, it stems from this idea of separation. It's just the Venn diagram is the opposite of separation. It's like you have two separate circles come together, and then there's a hidden side that comes out of it. That's even in Freemasonry. You've got the two pillars, the two towers. You got knowledge, you got wisdom. But there is a third pillar, which often is identified as the pyramid within the two pillars. That's kind of like what the 9/11 ritual was somewhat about. It's like, let's bring down the two pillars to reveal the hidden pillar that is not there, like that you can't see. And then they built this fucking 8-sided building in its place. So like the thing is, this group that wants to exploit the world, that's like they mask themselves within both parties, within both sides. So it's like, to give credit to those people that see, like, right now it's a situation where each side is pointing their finger at the other side saying, you are the existential threat. The Republicans are pointing at the Biden people, and the Democrats being like, you are an existential threat to America and to the world. And then the Bidens, the Democrats are looking at Trump being like, you are the existential threat to the world. Yeah. And that is the biggest problem. Yeah. Because it's like, no, like
they're both right, both wrong.
They're both right and they're both wrong. Exactly.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing. Yeah. The age-old tactic, right? Divide. Yeah. You were a little out of focus there.
Yeah.
Divide and conquer. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty evident that Trump is trying to stir the pot and make things more divisive. Like nobody's. You had it first. There you go. Hey.
Yeah, there we go.
Looking sharp. Yeah, it's just a fucking mess. But it has to happen. It can't be forced. Neither side can be forced into evolving, right? It has to be a natural thing, and I think both sides have to kind of realize what they're doing wrong and what they're doing right. And I don't know how that's going to happen. It could be the old. There's a million ways it could happen, or it couldn't happen. I really don't know. You got the extraterrestrial threat, or the asteroid threat, or the giant squid. You know, it's got to be something. It's got to be something outside of those things, though, or in, you know, not outside of them, because you just made a whole point of that it can't be outside of it, but like it has to be a third thing that really does show everybody the truth. And I just don't know what is most likely in this place, and that could be like full blown fascism. I think that would kind of show the Trumpeteers that, oh shit, we didn't realize it was going to get this extreme. We didn't realize we were going to get persecuted as well, you know, once it starts hitting them. But I don't know. I think it's just going to take a long time because of it's kind of ingrained in the mentality of so many people, and specifically people, you know, older than us. They're not going to change. They're just never going to change. Doesn't matter what happens on both sides. You know, anybody over 60 or 70 is not going to change. You know, it's a very bold, very, very general statement, and it's not true 100%. But, you know, we can't sit here and try to change people's minds who, you know, can't teach an old dog new tricks. We just got to wait. We got to wait a while and then try again at some point and hope it didn't get too bad by that point. Because right now, the way that the climate is, there's no way that something good could come out of it. It needs to run its course. And then we need to have the retrospect be like, look what we did. It wasn't just you and it wasn't just me, but look what we fucking did. Look where we're at right now. Like, this is not sustainable. And I just don't know. I just hope it doesn't get too far before we realize, you know.
I think it'll be okay in the long run.
I think it will be too.
It will be, but like, you know, our sense of time, that's the part that it gets tricky, because like, you know, in the long run, you know, how like within our lifetimes.
Yeah, in the long run, Germany was fine, but
yeah, but like I remember it was Black Panther 2018, my 30th birthday. When you came out here, we went to David Duchovny's apartment, and Hank Moody, right? My mind blanked on that for a second. I got to get that on Plex, by the way. I was thinking about that.
It's on Netflix.
It is, but I'm trying to get everything on
Okay,
Plex.
fair enough. Yeah, so all that stuff going on. NBA All-Star Weekend.
Yeah, all that stuff was going on. I remember on my birthday, we went to the beach, and I saw that psychic, or that like reader. Remember that?
I got my Be Nice tattoo that day too.
Yes.
Yeah, that black guy, right? That kind of like tried to pull us in a couple of times.
Yeah. And he totally.
Hold on, I'm so sorry. I'm really mad at myself because I'm really trying to be conscious of that. Because I called him a black guy.
That's okay.
I know,
he's
but
a black guy.
I know, but he's also just a guy.
Yeah, I know. I just sidebar.
I got mad at my dad internally because he was like, "Hey, did you hear about that black actor that died?" And I was just like, "God damn it, Dad!" You know, he said it multiple times. I'm just like,
so the only time, like I totally resonate and agree with you. I've gotten into multiple arguments with my mom, my dad, about that way of like characterizing people, and like, oh, that black guy. I'm like, well, why couldn't you just call him that guy? Like, why does he have to be a black guy? He's just a guy. On that level, like from that point of view, yeah, sure. Like, but at the same time, like I've kind of come around a little bit to the point where I don't feel as bad saying like that, you know, like black guy. But my line that I draw is like to call, you know, the blacks. Like the blacks think this. Yeah. I think that's the difference. You know, like,
I agree. I just was trying to. It doesn't have any. My point to myself was it didn't have any relevance to the story. It didn't matter that the psychic was black.
Right. It didn't. But it's true. I don't.
So,
don't beat yourself up over.
I know. I'm just trying to be more conscious about it. So that was just slap myself on the wrist there. But that was. I forgot all that happened in one day. So yeah, we were at Venice Beach walking around, and he kind of like a couple of times was like trying to call us over, right?
Yeah. And then eventually I went over there. It was my birthday and had a reading. He said a lot of really cool things, a lot of relevant things. But the thing that comes to mind right now, based on this, you know, or to add to the conversation here, he was talking about the age of Aquarius, because he immediately like was like, oh, you're an Aquarius, you're an air sign, you got Nike Air Max, and yeah, you probably like this and that. And I was just like, yeah, well, I'm like, that was perfect, because for me, like, I don't really seek out psychics or tarot readers or anything like that. I'm just like, it just happens and flow into it and just go with it. And that guy had so many cool things to say. But something he said that really makes me think, and also just what we're talking about here in terms of the future, is looking at the age of Aquarius. God bless you. God,
Thank you.
yeah,
I feel blessed.
God bless you.
Whatever.
God bless you forever. He was like talking about the age of Aquarius and projecting this future, like, because every age in astrology is about 2,600 years, something like that, I think. So that's a long time. That's like more, 2,600 years is an age of the zodiac. And he was describing the age of Aquarius, and something he said that at the time when he said this, it like didn't make me feel great, but with the way things are going, makes sense that the age of Aquarius is going to be an age of where individuality completely and ultimately disappears. And there will be in like major world instances of dictatorships, and like individuals that come up that the way he described it, almost it was like a communist nightmare, just like everyone wearing the same clothes, everyone's thinking the same thing. And that's just a reference I want to bring up, because like where we're going in the future, I think like something that has not been part of this conversation, which I think is going to be very, very influential in the way things unfold, is the technology. Elon Musk just had his first fucking Neuralink demonstration. Like, what's his name? Andrew Yang. Like when he ran for president, he was like, guys, AI and automation, fucking Skynet, it's coming. Like, and everyone's like, okay, yeah, well, let's, okay, yeah, Andrew Yang, like Joe Biden and Trump, we know it's going to come to that. Like,
Yeah, right.
Whatever. But like, I think that's going to be a major part of this, where we're going to have this like collective hive mind with technology that's going to put us all into the same kind of mindset. And I think, the way, like my point of what I'm trying to say here is, I think the age of Aquarius, and like, sadly, we're not even really into it yet. We're just beginning it. The next 2,600 years could be equivalent of the cocoon between the butterfly, the butterfly, or the caterpillar and the butterfly.
Yeah.
It's going to be a cocoon where there's just going to be this fluxing energy of, the Venn diagram. We're going to have both individually, collectively. We're going to have everything. And we're going to have more dictators. We're going to have more like fucking hyper technical technology communism. We're going to have unity, we're going to have community, but we're going to have hyper individuality. We're going to have super rich people and super poor people. We're going to have a collective hive mind. At the same time, we're going to have individual thinking. It's going to be everything at once. It's going to be this transformational time, I think, where the real evolution, the real change is going to be within. Like everything, literally, I think over the next like couple thousand years, it's going to be everything. And depending on what your lenses are in your mind, in your heart, how you're feeling, that's what you're going to see. And the thing is, it's like, I think over the next couple thousand years, it's going to be this thing where like, what is truth? What is fact? What is real? What is not real? Welcome to the desert of the real. Like, this is what's real. Like,
dude, I think you just described exactly what's happening right now, though.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. And like,
okay.
we're literally at the beginning of that. It's going to be happening like this for thousands of years, I think. I know it sucks. Like part of it sucks. But again, back to my point, it's like the real evolution, which is going to be happening,
Mhm.
you know, in the like David Wilcock talked about the you know, the points of time. Like if you look at time as a line, which is an illusion, but if you have these points of like historical events on a line over the next couple thousand years, there's going to be this like condensing of that line so that the points will become closer and closer and closer, so that eventually when you look at it, it won't appear as a line with a bunch of dots on it. It'll just appear like a dot the moment.
Uh-huh.
But from our perspective right now, it seems like we have like all these moments, but they're happening quicker and quicker. And I think the expediency and the rate in which that happens is going to all be dependent on your own personal perception.
Mhm.
How do you see the world? And the further we go into time, see, this is like the most confusing thing that like I think people in the future, quote unquote future, are going to like have the hardest time understanding. Just like today, when we look at cave paintings on the walls in France and all this stuff, they were like, what were they thinking? How did they build the pyramids? I don't know. Like in the future, they're going to be looking back at this time and the way that we thought. They're just going to have no fucking clue. How the fuck did they even, like, it doesn't make sense. Why did they see it that way? But I think it's because we're getting to this point where it's like everything is happening. It's all, the evolution happens within. It's like the collapsing is not like external from us. The collapsing is within us. So it's like the moment that we, you know, you see the world as it is, like, again, great movie to describe what this is going to look like, I think, is The Fountain. You know, in the future timeline, the last man on earth has to leave and go to Xibalba to take the tree of life to be reborn. It's like it all comes down to one person and one event. I think like for the next 2,000 years, plus whatever, how long time, the individual, it's like it's all going to come down to the way that you see it. And the world is going to be coming at you being like, this is what you should think. Here, look at this and look at this. And you have to choose, is it this or that? And then people are going to be like, oh, I don't know what to think. It's like, you're not going to get the answer from outside of you. It's going to come from within. The moment that you decide what you want to believe, then the world will instantly appear that way.
Right.
So I think like it's going to be a long timeline of this type of shit going on. But the beauty of the quantum like ascension, like what I think David Wilcock is trying to interpret with this ascension is that like, even though this is going to be happening for a long time, it could happen just like that in your own life.
Yeah.
You won't be able to convince other people. The moment you get it and you'll want to share it with people, it doesn't exist anymore. It's like the moment you try to fucking impose your belief system on somebody else, that's the moment it all falls apart. You don't have to believe. We're moving out of an era of belief into an era of knowing. And when you know something, do you really have to convince other people to know what you know? No.
Because you know how you got there.
You know how you got there.
And if you know somebody telling you what to do.
Yeah.
It was from you figuring it out yourself. Yeah.
And if you know, then you're transcendent upon the idea of like having to tell other people, because if you know, then they will get it when the time is right.
Right.
Like all the ascended masters, you know, like
I mean,
they never judged people.
Like the Dalai Lama. He's the example of that right now. You know, he's not out there trying to convince people of anything. And he's just always who he is.
Yeah.
Always just a silly, goofy Tibetan dude who's been like, yeah, life is crazy. This is crazy, right? You know, and that's just his whole attitude the whole time. And he's not out there telling, you know, he's obviously, when people ask him his opinion, he gives powerful, positive, loving things. But yeah, he's not trying to like convert the world into Buddhism.
No, he's living by example.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. It's easy to take the red pill and to see the truth. But it's a hell of a lot harder to live that truth. Mm-hmm. That's why it took 3 fucking Matrix movies for Neo to finally get that.
Yeah.
Finally to fucking get that. And they're making another one right now.
Because he didn't get the whole thing.
He never did. No. Yeah, know. So like, I think that's why it's going to take several thousand years for like a mass of people to get that, because
Everybody,
we're so programmed to look outside, because not even just programmed, it's by the nature of the hologram of ourselves. We're constantly receiving from the environment.
yeah,
Your eyes receive light, your ears receive sound, your skin receives sensation, your tongue receives taste. Like everything is receiving.
yeah,
And that is the illusion, is that you're not receiving the truth, you're receiving the illusion, and you have to make the truth.
yeah,
And you're not going to find the truth out there. So it's like the whole thing. It's like, I need to keep taking and taking and taking to get more truth and more truth. And that's knowledge. It's like, I need to, like Indiana Jones and the fucking crystal skull. Like, I want more and more knowledge. And she gets so much knowledge that her eyes burn up and she's like, fuck, too much knowledge. Like, it's like, you'll never get all the knowledge. You can only receive so much. You got a cup. You can't fill this thing with more than it can be filled with.
right.
You have to give back. You have to have balance. And no one can do that for you.
Right.
You have to do it yourself. So I think we're going to have these, it's like the rapture as far as like Christian and ascension, as David Wilcock would say. It's like, you know, the people are going to disappear. First there were two and then there were one. It's like, as people start to recognize this truth within themselves and how it applies to the community, that no longer are they going to be participating in that system.
Right. And that's the ascension, right? Is the not participating. It's not necessarily, maybe one day people will start just kind of turning into rainbows and going away. But yeah, that's a much more practical thing in the way you just described it, is that they're not participating. So they're ascending from this plane of this variety show that we're in right now. And then the more, I like that idea. I never really thought about it that way, that they just take themselves out of the
Equation.
The equation. Yeah. And so they're still there, but they're just kind of like not bothered. It's like, no, that's that. Okay. Have a good day. You know, like just not imposing anything, still living around the same reality, but yes, internally, completely different reality.
And you know what is funny? Like when you say that, that is a perfect definition in the new paradigm of what happens when you die. No longer.
Also, I think you go insane too, right?
Well,
like
that's,
you're living in a different reality than other people, and
it's and they say there's a fine line between insanity and genius. It's, again, that comes down to like how you're perceiving it, and not just how you're perceiving it, but Venn diagram, how you're perceiving it and how you're interacting in your community with it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's not just about pulling out of the commute, like turn on, tune in, and drop out or whatever.
Yeah.
It's about pulling out, but also interacting in a different way. So it like the idea of even death. It's like, yeah, I'm not participating. Like, you died, you're not participating in this world anymore, but you're still interacting in a different way, in another level, and we fear that. At a primal level. Like, death is the thing. Like, I remember after seeing David Wilcock the second time, I remember having my tie-dye sweatshirt on, driving back up the 405 to go to the house, and all of us, like, I remember, I think it was David that said that LSD was the antidote to the atomic bomb.
Oh.
Remember that? Like, LSD or the psychedelic movement in the 60s was the antidote to the atomic weapons. Mm-hmm. It was just like, just take a step back. But like, I remember thinking that ecstasy was the antidote to 2012.
Ooh, yeah.
Driving up the 405, and we're visually going up the 405 to the 118, thinking that 2012, simply, really what it is just we die.
Yeah, I remember you saying that a lot, and I never was happy about it when you said it.
Yeah, of course, because no one wants to die. Like, you don't want to fucking die, right?
Uh-huh.
And we have these cultural beliefs and these personal fears about what that all means. Like, oh my God, death is the end. No, it's not. So if we were to if we were to recognize that, we're like the butterfly, like death and the butterfly, like the caterpillar dies, but is reborn into the butterfly, into a completely different form that has the lightest touch on this planet compared to the caterpillar that just eats and consumes everything in its path.
Yeah.
Like we no longer participate in the world as, you know, when you ascend, you no longer participate in that way,
Mm-hmm.
but you're still alive. You're still
There.
you're still there in a higher form, in a more evolved form.
Yeah, and just you being the way that you be influences, not like overtly or selling T-shirts or like handing out flyers, but you're just your presence and the way that you carry yourself, even if you're just kind of weaving through chaos. Yeah, that has an effect. Just like you said, like holding the space. Like you've used that for you being in Hollywood. That kind of has drastically changed since you started living there. Holding the space, and I think that's kind of what you're getting to, is that because you can, there are the people who go off the grid and they're like, I'm done with society and I'm living. Uncle Bruce has almost done that to an extent, but like people who just go off and be like, I'm done with this world, obviously, yeah, into the wild, that kind of stuff, and they have that kind of evolved energy, but they're kind of just keeping it to themselves, so they're not really helping or contributing to other people, or the society, the community. It doesn't really help the community to kind of it's like if one of your cells ascended and then all of a sudden it started operating here instead of within your body. It just doesn't, you being ascended and being outside doesn't help your body.
Dude, you know what that is? That's cancer.
Oh,
When a group of cells
yeah,
decide to ascend
yeah,
without the whole, they are no longer part of the system. They're doing their own thing. They're fine. They're thriving.
yeah,
They're creating a great tumor, and like, it has nothing to do with you. They don't need you to survive.
yeah. But the rest of
And
them do.
and the way that we perceive it on this level, it's a cancer. It's a disease. It's because the whole system is not in harmony.
Right, right.
So it comes back to leading by example, just and
And not putting it in people's, shoving it in people's faces, because everyone's tried that from every side, and it's always preaching to the choir. Always, always, always. Maybe there's one or two people that could be like, man, I was walking by and I just happened to heard Dr. Martin Luther King giving a speech, and I wasn't really on it, but hearing him talk and seeing those people, that really changed me. There's like 1 in a million that happened, because nobody would be there, nobody'd be open to it. If they weren't already open to it, then they're not going to be. So yeah, preaching in it, and at this point, it almost just makes you want to rebel more. Like, oh, they're saying that, therefore, like, I want to be the opposite even more. Like the juvenile aspect of it. But yeah, the leading by example. It'd be like if like Buddhist monks were protesting. If they were at the protests, or just holy people, of any religion, just being there and not doing anything. Just not even just literally sitting there, I think would help change. Yeah, holding the space, that would really, really affect it, just energetically.
I was talking to my friend Lauren about this the other day, that just in terms of the protests, of course there's the drive to go out there and be part of the movement, but there are also people that just want to hold space. Just, you don't have to go out there and, like, if there's thousands of people marching down the street, you going out there, of course it's a choice. It's not right or wrong. It's just like, there's an option. You don't have to go out there. If there's thousands and thousands of people marching down the street, you going out there, is that going to make the difference that the protest is going to make? Or is holding space for opportunity going to make a difference?
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, it's like about codependence and balance. That's like Uncle Bruce talks about the periodic table of the elements. Most of the elements are codependent with each other when it comes to making molecules.
Mhm.
You know, one molecule's out of balance, but when the other out of balance molecule comes together, they work in harmony. They
I
balance.
always think about that when he gave that like relationships, like kind of the
Yes,
metaphor to that. I always think about that. And then
exactly.
the noble gas,
The noble gases.
right? When
Yeah.
yeah, they
Yeah.
don't. They're
So
not.
no,
And we're so
they're in balance by themselves.
yeah.
And and the thing is it's not like the perception that of like the, you know, the monks in Tibet that just have to pull themselves out of society and meditate for their whole lives to like be a noble gas, and that's the only way to be, you know, like in order to be noble you have to be separate and alone. Like, no, that is not true, because when you are a noble gas and you're spinning in perfect balance and you come together with another noble gas that's spinning in balance, these two balanced atoms come together and they don't balance each other. They vibrate so much they literally become a new molecule type called an excitomer. They are so excited together that they vibrate such a high fucking frequency they literally emit laser light. That's how fucking lasers work, man.
Yeah.
Like argon gas, xenon gas, like all these things. Like that's how the lasers work. You have a beam of light going through a coherent beam, you know, a beam of light going through the gas of noble gases. It just makes such a focused light. There's no dissipation. It's like you could shine a laser light to the moon. It'll be the same dot as it was when it left that source.
Mhm.
Because when you put all of these noble gases together, these elements, these atoms of just perfect harmony together, then you get something really powerful.
Mhm.
So it's again back to this idea that it's not one or the other, it's both.
Yeah.
Sure, like you can go down the rabbit hole and say you got the, on one side you got the codependent atoms and then you got the noble atoms. Okay, the codependent need each other to survive. That's a learning lesson. We can't survive on our own. But there is a limitation there where if you try to separate them, they'll be out of balance. But then if you look to the noble gases, they could be perfectly fine on their own.
Mhm.
But is that the point of life, to be perfectly fine on your own? No. Like Chris McCandless, you can't be perfectly fine on your own. You need to share it. So
Yeah.
if you have two perfectly balanced people come together, two perfectly balanced atoms come together, it creates something new. And that's the Venn diagram. You take these two things come together and boom, this thing emerges. You don't make a whole new circle. You have to bring them together.
Yeah. Purple party, man.
It's the purple party, man. Yeah. So like I'm totally optimistic about the future. It's just like it's just
The future is not this year for you, Alex.
no. The future is going to be a long, grueling process in terms of time. But if you can quiet down and just like sit there and accept what's going on, like just like you can accept that death is not the end.
Mhm.
Death is not the end of existence, or accept that you're not alone, that we are all here together, and that we're not alone on earth, that there's just life everywhere. And then third thing is if you can accept that we are not moving in a linear fashion. It's not a one thing leads to another thing, leads to another thing, leads to another thing. And, you know, we made a mistake, let's go back and change it. Sorry, you can't. Like, if you
Right.
believe that, if you believe time is like an arrow flying through the air, or if you look at time more as a hologram, time is the human body. You know, like, is the head in the past or are the feet in the past?
Mhm.
Doesn't really apply.
Right.
There is no past, future in hologram. So if we can break through those myths, we can really start to accelerate that process. So yeah, sure, like a couple thousand years of this going on, but the thing is, the more people that get it, the
Well,
quicker it'll accelerate.
the hundred monkey theory that
100 monkey theory.
still applies with consciousness as well, I think.
Yeah.
And as David Wilcock has said, I think too, like just we need to, you know, a certain percentage of people need to be in a certain percentage of a vibration, and then it kind of sets the ascension, you know, path. You know, I think it's
Yeah, and we're already there, man.
Yeah.
I think I told you, like, there was that episode of Corey Good and David Wilcock, and they were talking about how it's like in the law of one, you have to have at least 51% in service to others, and 50, like at least just tip of the scale a little bit. You don't have to get everybody. And then there was an episode of Cosmic Disclosure with Corey Good and David, and they were talking about like some like Blue Avian download, whatever the fuck, and they were like, yeah, we got word that only 300,000 souls on Earth have switched to service to others. And David's like, oh, no, this is terrible. There's like 8 billion people on the planet, only 300,000? Oh, no, we're fucked.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the Kabbalistic tree of life and the Hebrew understanding of this whole division of souls and the fractured mirror ball of souls, there are literally 600,000 points of individuality within this whole. So when they were like, yeah, I remember I told you that. So like they were freaking out, like, oh my God, only 300,000. This is terrible. Like, no, we are literally at the halfway point.
Yeah.
We've got plenty.
Yeah, it's because of the influence and the holding the space. And it's not like they're all in Milwaukee. It's like, 300,000 people in one place. No one else is going to be able to. It's like, no, they're everywhere.
Yeah. And it's not even just 300,000 people, I think. God bless you. God bless you.
Excuse me. Thank you.
I don't even think it's as simple as like equating 300,000 souls to 300,000 people.
Yeah.
I think, like even David has talked about how like one individual like Edgar Casey made such an impact on Earth that so many like hundreds of people are basically downloading. Like if you consider Edgar Casey a prism and a light coming through that prism and creates all these frequencies of light outside, like the Dark Side of the Moon album cover.
Yeah.
Like one soul comes in through a prism and creates, 90 frequencies.
Right.
So 300,000 is like, millions, billions of people.
Right. Yeah. We don't need 3 billion people to be ascended masters. Yeah.
No. Because for every John Allen, there's, I don't know, however many hundreds of other John Allens that are out there.
Yeah.
Not exactly John Allen, but like if you met at least one or two of these people, you'd be like, man, this person really reminds me of, I feel the same way as you. Have you ever met somebody that they just like totally, I'd be like, wow, that's like, we're totally on the same page.
Yeah. I met this guy in college. Moved in across the hall from me.
I was like, you got to try acid, man.
You got to meet this guy. His name's Chris. It'll blow your mind.
Dude, we got to do a podcast with Chris. I was talking with him on iPhone the other day.
Nice. It always makes me so happy that you stayed in pretty regular contact with him, because he's just been out of my world for a long time. But that always makes me happy. But yeah, I would love to do a podcast with him for sure.
So good. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and everybody. Yeah, once we get our own place situated, even if we still have to do a virtual podcast. But yeah, I'd love to get Chris in there. Would love to do a fucking Faroe Island podcast with Dalbo.
Oh my God, how
cool Dalbo
would that
Dad,
be?
and then Corey and Jeremy and everybody, man.
Just speaking of Corey, I'm just gonna throw this out there. I have a movie idea that I'm developing.
Okay.
And was talking about with Mayor the other night, but two of the characters in this movie, I'm inspired, like basing it off of Corey and Maddie.
Okay.
But I'm naming them Maury and Caddy Lakeman. It's basically them, but it's their names are Maury and Caddy.
I love it.
Lakeman.
The Lakemans.
The Lakemans. They're human rights attorneys.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I'm digging it. I look forward to hearing more about that.
Yeah, but I don't want to tell you until I finish reading Brunch.
Yeah.
I know. There are a few things that I want to bring up to you, but it's like in the back of my mind, I'm like, Alex, you can't even bring this up until you finish Brunch, because it's just not right. It's not fair.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. But yeah, that's the one I'm going to next, just to kind of counterbalance the heaviness of Mandala. You know, I'm want to because brunch is like the opposite, and you know, energetically and
Mhm.
cotton candy and all that kind of shit. So, so you have at least until then to read
Okay.
it. But
I'll have it by then.
yeah, I look forward to hearing your ideas, and then also, like I said before, I texted you about it. Like, I really want to come up with a concept for a movie where you and I do it again, but something completely separate from Mandala World, like nothing based on anything that we've ever talked about or that
Yeah.
we've ever like, you know, like a completely original story that you and I are working on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Absolutely.
we need to do that.
Yeah.
And maybe we can talk to other people just to get the ball rolling too, see what
Mhm.
Mayor and
Mhm.
and other people have to think. But yeah, I'm excited to do that. Like I love Mandala, but we've been working on it for 13 years or 12 years, I guess. But yeah, so I'll be relieved once this is. It feels like it'll never be done, but it will be done,
It will be done.
and it's always closer than it was.
Yeah.
But we're very, very close now. But I will be relieved once this thing
Me
gets
too.
done, and then it can we could talk about other projects again. You know, like
Oh yeah. That'll be the day. Finally. Poop
I want
this
to
thing out.
know more about the Lakemans. I want to know more about the Horse and the Rider.
Yeah, the
and
Lakemans.
then-
The Lakemans are like they're the B story in this movie. It's a great idea that was inspired by an argument that Uncle Bruce and I had about
Great.
politics and Joe Biden, and the whole idea about putting your finger in the dam to stop the dam from falling apart. And I was just so pissed and was like, "This is bullshit. This is bullshit." And then like Uncle Bruce and I we collaborated on this idea.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get into it. We'll get into
Yeah,
it. It's
for
still
sure.
it's still like totally in development at this point.
Good. I feel like right now is a good, just the energy of the world, the chaos and the whirlwind is kind of conducive to new ideas for whatever reason right now. I just feel like everything is all kicked up and it's like, oh, I don't know. I can think differently now. You know, it's kind of like things are just, I don't know. Let's get wacky. So
let's get wacky.
we'll see where the ideas come from, where they fall, if they come from the ground or the sky or the trees or the.
Something tells me we're gonna have an inheritance. We're gonna be able to buy a camper and a truck.
I also decided today that I want to buy a boat.
Oh, a boat, yes. we need to bring Jeremy Seward into this.
Oh, for sure. He's probably already got a boat.
He's probably
We already know he's got one. It's on his bicep, right?
Yeah, I think it's like right here.
Or yeah, there. Yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that sounds right. Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, that's
Agree,
true.
man.
Yeah, definitely getting a boat would be dope.
Just anything that's mobile. We'll get a plane, a boat, a camper, and then a house on wheels.
And then when we're in our 60s, we'll get a UFO.
Yeah.
It won't be called a UFO at that point. It'll be like a
No.
whatever craft, but
We probably have one waiting for us, you know, parked in some sort of what are they called?
hangar.
Hangar, yeah, for sure. We for sure got one waiting for us. They're just waiting for us to get to a certain point, and they're like,
It'll manifest.
Mr. Lipton, Mr. Allen, we've been waiting for you. Here is your SUV.
They pull the curtain away.
Galactic utility vehicle.
Yeah. Oh man. I am just really excited too. Like when you come out here to visit, I want to shoot that scene of us hanging out, maybe smoking a bowl or something. And it'll be like, you know, we'll just be hanging out, being Bill and Ted basically. And then us's from the future show up, our future us's show up. And we just simply replicate that scene of we should shoot it at a 7-Eleven. Or no,
Circle K.
Circle K. Yeah, 7-Eleven. Circle K, yeah, exactly. That'll be hilarious.
Yeah, we could definitely do that. And fuck, we don't even know what's gonna happen from now until then. Like, there's a girl. I saw a couple of YouTube videos where a girl had that conversation with herself. But then she had to do it again because it was like her appearing. It was just very simple. I think she's sitting at her kitchen table. And she's just like, hey, she's like, what? She's like, hey, I'm you from 3 months from now. and just kind of explaining the first like 3 months of 2020, and then her her president self being like, wow, yeah, that's pretty crazy, blah 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 blah. And then again she had to do it, then she did it again where she went back to the second self that went back in time, and they were like, oh yeah, that was crazy. And she's like, yeah, I'm from 3 months from then, and it gets even fucking crazy. She goes back and she's like, all right, so where are you guys right now? She's like, what just happened? And then she's like, oh yeah, this just started and that happened. It's really crazy. She goes, oh, okay.
Oh yeah, it's crazy now. Wait till you get to 3 months.
Exactly. Exactly. And then
Oh my God.
her past self is like, yeah, those wildfires in Australia. And then the other girl's like, oh my God, I forgot about that. That's how much crazy shit has happened, is that we thought Australia was going to burn up and I forgot about it.
Yeah.
So
we were
yeah,
gonna go to war with Iran. Forgot about it.
Yeah. So, there's going to be a lot
We'll do that.
for us to do that. Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be good.
I'm
Yeah.
excited for that. Yeah, a lot of little shit like that. I love if you keep writing down those little ideas if you got for us when I come out there, and then also when I come out there permanently, because we should just keep making stuff.
Yeah.
Keep creating.
Absolutely.
Cultural creatives, right? That's what Uncle Bruce says.
Cultural. Hello, dear friends, seekers, and cultural creatives. I'm Bruce Lipton.
Yeah. Yeah, cool.
All right.
Is there any update on the house, Uncle Bruce's house?
The only update I know now, my dad keeps pressing for him to get in touch with the fire department to get up there, because of course they want to get back up to their house just to see it, not only just see if it's there, but to retrieve some shit.
Yeah. So they still, as far as they know, it's still standing, but they don't.
As far as they know, it's still there. And the thing is that their neighbor Dick actually put out the fire so that their house would not catch on fire.
Yeah.
Because they I don't know if you remember, but at Uncle Bruce's house, he has 2 giant water tanks.
Yeah, you told me about those.
I always thought those were for survival, like water, if they needed water if the power went out. But apparently it was a code thing with the cottage that they have. If they wanted to have the cottage, they had to have certain water tanks for the fire department in case there was fire.
Right.
And the thing is that it runs off the natural power, but since they don't have power, there's a generator that keeps those things running. Right. The generator is run on the solar power. And as far as, my dad keeps pressing for him, saying like this generator was not meant to run, indefinitely.
Yeah.
And, and my Uncle Bruce and Aunt Margaret want to get back up to the house. And my dad's like, well, get in touch with the fire department, tell them you have this generator that, we don't know, because the fire department and the town, the city board and everything was so strict upon you need to have these water towers just in case there's a fire.
Yeah. And
my dad's like, yeah, like in a crisis situation, they forget about that shit. They made it such a big deal. They had to get those tanks just in case. And my dad's like, yeah, they probably don't even know about those tanks.
Right.
So my dad's just trying to encourage him to get in touch with the fire department to get, so because apparently, because last time I talked to Uncle Bruce, he was saying that the National Guard pretty much put very serious roadblocks up to get to that mountain. So because of the looting and the danger and everything, you cannot get up onto that thing. And Uncle Bruce is already starting to think fuck it, I'm not gonna bother, because they're not letting anybody up there. There's 70,000 people trying to get back to their homes. So it's oh no, I need to get back to my home. Let me up there. It's and I kept telling my dad, it's let it go. My dad's like, no, go to the fucking fire department and let them know that you've got these 2 water tanks that are filled with water for the event of fires.
Yeah.
And that they're run on a generator that we don't know, that generator could go. I have a feeling my dad might be just, trying to devil's advocate, try to be hey, this is a reason to get up to the house.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to tell my dad, I've gotten a little tips with him, being Dad, just stop thinking negatively. You're what if the generators go and the thing catches on fire? I'm is that going to happen? He's like, well, probably not, but you never know. And I'm well, just stop fucking willing that into existence.
Right. Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
it's like, if they can't get up there, stop feeding the fear that like, oh, well, if you don't get up there, it might blow or something. But still, so like, as far as I know right now, I haven't talked to him in a couple of days, but I feel bad for him, man. Like, I can tell they're just out of sorts. They don't have any of their shit. Apparently, he didn't grab any of his jackets or his sweatshirts. It's cold, and he's just like, I don't know, man. So like, we'll see. But as far as we know right now, the fire came right up to that tennis court in their neighbor's house, and the neighbor was able to put the fire out, so it didn't catch. So as far as we know right now, their house still is there, but they won't if they can't get up the way my dad wants them to. They won't be able to get up there for at least a month
Yeah.
because of the utilities and the roadblocks and the devastation.
There's,
So
there's nothing you can do really, and that probably feels really shitty to be helpless. But
yeah, I mean, they're saying, God
Excuse me.
bless.
Thank you.
So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I'll keep sending good vibes, and we'll wish for the best
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, as far as we know right now, it's like you said, a bubble of protection
Yeah.
is enclosed over their house, kind of like at least 3 or 4 movies. There's a bubble over the town,
Mm-hmm.
above the house.
Wakanda.
Oh right, yeah, that one.
That's a different kind of bubble, but yeah.
Kept Thanos out for a minute.
Yeah. Well, they let him in, right? That was what they ultimately said. Just open it up and let him in, right?
Yeah, because otherwise they would have been attacking from all sides.
Yeah.
They funneled him in at that point.
Strategy.
Strategy.
That's what we need. 2020 needs fucking strategy right now.
Yeah, we do. We need strategy. Hell yeah.
All right, man. Good stuff. Yeah.
Well, I entrust I'm excited for the changes and updates with Mandala.
Yeah.
If there's anything you want to run by, of course, just message me. But I'm excited to read it, man.
Yeah, we got a lot of good stuff from our last talk, so I don't really have any questions. We kind of filled in all the gaps of any looseness that I thought was there. So
Good.
wrote down all the main notes that we have, and then like I said, I came up with a couple other things with like the president having a. Real quick, do you have any ideas about like what kind of bill the president could be trying to pass?
Oh, right,
Something like
right.
homelessness, or like I don't know. That just kind of came to my mind to kind of add to like
Political thriller.
Yeah. So like, oh, he's passing this bill. Fuck him, like, and that puts a time frame on it too. Like, oh, they have to kill the president before he tries to pass the bill. Just
like if it had something to do with homelessness and came up before the Skid Row massacre,
Mhm.
it would. I feel like it would add to the expediency and need
Okay,
to
agreed.
do that, and also in the back of the minds of the audience to think like, the police going in and murdering all those homeless people is just another brick in the wall of like, fuck this president. Yeah, there's a bill coming out to protect the president. Well, LAPD is like, fuck you. We're gonna go and murder all these people. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Like if it was some sort of like homeless protection act or something like that.
Yeah.
Then like when the massacre happens, that's when the president is like, all right, well, enough is enough. Maybe he declares, like with that plus the pandemic, maybe not martial law, but start to do some executive orders to like
Mhm.
further the agenda, which then makes Hollis and those guys more, pressed for time to get this Mandala brainwashing experience like underway.
Yeah, and then maybe Lily could also be like an advocate for that could be one of her things that she's being political about, activist about, like, oh, we need to get this bill pushed through. Maybe that's one of the times the president talks to her. Maybe he could be like, hey, can you help me with this? Get this bill some traction, and then so maybe that's why she's more worked up about the actual massacre, is because they were working together on this bill, and then all of a sudden this thing happened. So that can kind of just make her, give more of a connection between her and the president, and give it a real reason to be communicating, like, because she'll actually be helping him and he'll be helping her.
Yeah.
And then more of a reason for her to want to actually go protest.
Right. Like she doesn't just go to the protest because it was fucked up. She goes there because she was already invested in the outcome.
Yeah. Cool.
That just adds a whole other layer to it, which is great.
And then the only other little thing I came up with, I think, was just to show Chris's good faith. Just another moment. It could be a lot smaller, where Lily asks him to do something for her that's not necessarily convenient, but he does it anyway. Just to kind of establish, like, so at the very end when she asks him to do this massive favor of go save the president.
Do you already have something in mind?
No, I don't. Not even. Not
What if? Because there's the scene where she goes back to Bill at the large and in charge security guy. What if she sends Chris to go get the list?
Okay.
Because she can't, like, because there was always a part of me that was a little like,
Okay.
that's like residual of her going to the fucking Stanford with the
You're right.
glasses on,
You're
like
right.
going to Bill, being like, let me get the list. Like, what if she sends him to go get it?
Okay. I like that. That's small and quick and doable, but he doesn't have to do it. But he does do it. So it kind of gives you more. Okay. Perfect. Perfect, man. Thanks, dude.
All right.
I like your brain. Cool. All right, man. Yeah, and like I said, I really want to get it done by this weekend and just kind of have
And
this like settle.
Yeah.
So,
I think this might, unfortunately, of course, the situation with Uncle Bruce and the house and everything, but I think maybe the fact that he doesn't really have much he can do. Last time I spoke to him, he was like, I'm spinning my wheels here. I'm in limbo. I don't know what to do. Giving him a copy of Mandala to read might be a good proactive distraction for him.
I'd appreciate that, but obviously
Yeah, of course.
no pressure.
I could be wrong, but like it
Yeah.
I'm just, it might be.
Could go either way.
Could go either way.
Yeah. I'm not either way. Obviously, if he doesn't get to it, I'm still going to send it into Zoetrope by the first.
Yeah, those things that he would change, I don't think are going to be like so substantial that like would alter the.
Right. No one's going to be fact checking the science really. Like, oh, this is so implausible. That's not how vaccines work. You idiot.
Yeah. Right.
Failed. Yeah.
We've confiscated your screenplay because it's inaccurate.
Yeah. And I've also seen, because I just joined recently in the last couple of weeks, the screenwriting subreddit, and there's a lot of really good. It's a very thriving community, and people are very open about stuff. And there's other avenues besides that, other screenplay contests where you can get critiques or advice, and there's even people on there that are willing to give their 2 cents on it.
Nice.
So I'd like to keep getting feedback on it, but not necessarily sending it into that same screenplay contest. I think maybe some other input.
Yeah, and I have a feeling after this round of additions and changes and Uncle Bruce and all that, I have a feeling the next step is going to be Uncle Bruce getting this to Bharat and Bhavani.
Yeah.
And being like, hey, you've been asking for a screenplay. Here it is. Like I think we can, and not like cancel the idea of like submitting it to contests or whatever. But once we have this next draft, I think we can set another intention to bring it to investors. Like have like we've always talked about lately with getting our own agent, getting our own Ari.
Mm-hmm.
We could. I feel like once we have this next draft, it'll be ready. It'll be ready for that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Not to say that there won't be room for improvements, but it'll be at a point that is well beyond the like. This is quality enough for.
We don't need validation anymore. It's not
right.
a matter of validation. It's just a matter of like, let's move forward now.
Yeah, agreed. It's time too. 12 years, and it's gotten to such a point where I'm happy with it to a point where I think we're not naive to think that it's pretty damn good. So,
and technically it's 33 years.
You said
87.
87. There you go. Time is right.
Yep.
Time for people to face the music and realize that it's Mandala time. That Mandala moment.
Dude, I think she was definitely one of my favorite parts of that movie, man. The way she just nailed, because Keanu Reeves didn't really have it anymore. You
No.
didn't have that, and it's like I was talking about that with my dad because my dad and my mom watched it, they loved it, and my dad was just like, he just doesn't seem like he's like that goofy anymore. I'm like, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
his voice is different. He's been through so much in his personal life. He was
Yeah.
still hilarious, but it wasn't like that because
Yeah.
like no like that was such a unique mannerism and like character that you could never really replicate that again, but they did with his
Yeah.
daughter. So
Yeah, I
perfectly.
agree.
Just like, oh my god.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, they did it right. That made
And
me
I loved it
happy.
every time their dads came in, they're like, dads. Dads.
Yeah, they kept that spirit alive.
Oh man, that was so good, man. I want to get that. I need to get the soundtrack. It's got to be on Spotify. I haven't listened to it yet.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Great song.
Good shit, man. I want to hear that Dave Grohl song though too.
Right? That was the most beautiful song I've ever heard. Yes, Peppy Poppycock.
And I love that they open the door and Dave Grohl's there. He's like, "What are you doing in my house?" They shut it and then we don't see Dave Grohl again.
I
love
know.
it.
They're like, ah, and they close the door.
I
Like,
was
Dave-
expecting him to see him again at least one other time, but I just nope, that was it.
Dave Grohl, what are you doing in my house?
Perfect.
And just like, Ted, you really gotta take it easy on the vodka, dude. Yeah. Oh my god. We gotta save reality.
Good shit.
So good. I'm so glad. It's a good sign, man.
It is a good time. Uplifting.
All right, brother.
All right, duder.
Well, this is a good podcast. I'm excited to listen to this one.
Yeah. Very, very pertinent and timely. Hopefully we can
Yeah.
get some noble gases out there.
Noble gas.
Yeah. Noble. To nobly go where no gas has ever gone before. Oh.
Awesome, brother.
All right, cool, man. Yeah, and no rush on getting this one up necessarily.
Yeah.
Do it when you can. But yeah,
We'll do.
good talking. Love
Good
you.
talking as always. Love you too, man.
Well, and we'll talk to you soon. And I'm sure I'll be messaging you a lot in the next couple of days. So
All right. My love to the
All right.
family, Machiavelli, Abigail, everybody.
same right back at you, man. Peace
All
up,
right,
dude.
brother. Peace out. Be excellent.
Be excellent. Party on,
Party
dude.
up. Party on, dude.
Party up.
Party out, dude.
Party up. Party up, dude.
Peace, dude.